the full-time mage. The extreme lightning. This video is purely for entertainment and does not infringe on copyrights or laws. The rights to the novel and image belong to the original author. We do not claim ownership. Don't like waiting and want to listen to this fanfic in full now? Subscribe to our Patreon, where you'll find the best fanfics. Chapter 651 6 Series Super Level. Parthenon. It has been 10 days since Tangmyo and his party came here. In a guest courtyard, a small fire was burning in a small basin. Fan, it's not a good idea for us to just wait like this. Zao Manan burned the ghost ticket in his hand and said to Fan, what else can we do if we don't wait? Didn't you hear Asher Ruaya say that Boss Tang is in seclusion? Fan curled his lips. After saying that, he also picked up the ghost ticket that Zao Manan bought before and threw it into the fire basin. Mubei, this stuffy guy, is lucky to know us. Even if he dies, someone can still burn some money for him, but it's a pity that this guy is still a virgin. Zao Manan said with a slight sigh. What the two of them often do at night these days is to burn money for Mubei, whether he is really dead or fake dead. Xingxia, who can revive the dead, can't do anything, so there is almost no hope of treatment. After all, they can't find the Dark King. Waiting for Tangmyo to come out is nothing more than a hope in their hearts. By the way, I heard from Xingxia that something seems to have happened in Japan. After Fan burned all the ghost tickets in his hand, he stood up and stretched his shins. It's normal for demons to attack the city. Their country used to be often baptized by sea monsters. How normal? Zao Manan said disapprovingly. It's not that simple. Xingxia got the inside information that it seems that the ancient demon living in Japan has broken the seal and came out. Fan shook his head and said, who cares? It's not our country. Besides, hasn't Japan always said that there are many masters in their country? Zao Manan had no opinion on this matter. That's true. Fan nodded and said, but it seems to be quite serious. Japan has begun to ask for help from various countries. When Zao Manan was about to say something, a beautiful figure walked over. He seems to be coming out of seclusion. Do you want to go with me? After Asher Ruaya came over, she said in a flat voice. We too have wanted to go for a long time, but your knights here don't allow us to step in. Zao Manan shrugged. Has Tangmyo recovered? Fan asked. Asher Ruaya nodded. It seems that he recovered a few days ago, but I don't know why he has stayed here until now. After that, she led the two to the back mountain of Parthenon. This is where they once received the God Seal ceremony, but it is indeed not easy to go back after coming out. However, with Asher Ruaya leading the way, everything is so simple. Looking at Asher Ruaya leading the way, Zao Manan whispered, do you think that Boss Tang has something to do with this? I think there must be. Otherwise why would he come to her as soon as he came? However, this woman is really amazing. She cured him in just a few days. Tangmyo's recovery ability is good, but when he came, his magic power should not be able to recover. Although I'm very anxious, it is really outrageous to say that he has recovered. Damn, I don't want to team up with him anymore. I have never met such a top-notch person in my life. Zao Manan said with envy and jealousy. Of course, there are people who are not much different from Asher Ruaya in beauty. However, Zao Manan had never met a girl with such beauty, status, and temperament. Even if he did, it would have nothing to do with him. Fan nodded in agreement. It seemed that when there were top-notch girls and Tangmyo, he had nothing to do with them. He, Fan, was an outstanding young man after all, but he was only limited to comparing Zao Manan and other alternative geniuses. But when he met Tangmyo, there was no comparison. When Asher Ruaya and the other two arrived, Tangmyo had already walked out of the training ground. As early as a few days ago, he had actually recovered. The reason why he didn't come out was entirely because Qilin sent him the totem source power he got from Qinyuan. It was also with this opportunity that Tangmyo's ice system successfully reached the super level realm. In addition, his flame seemed to have been newly enhanced. The most important thing was that, after obtaining its totem source power, the two magic systems of ice and fire could actually be depicted and released at the same time. At this time, he finally understood why Qilin was shaking like that. Even with a powerful opponent, he still didn't let himself leave. Moreover, with the fusion of ice and fire, he also had the daughter fusion magic. He didn't need any help, he could do it by himself. Of course, this would be a huge project. Even if the fusion of ice and fire was not demonized, he had just completed the intermediate fusion. As for the high level, it couldn't be completed at all. The connection was almost always broken in the middle. Now, his thunder and fire have reached the second level of the super level, and the ice, shadow, space, and wind systems have also reached the super level. The area occupied by the demon system is also getting larger and larger. At present, the only thing missing is the summoning system. Once the summoning system breaks through to the super level, he will have a new magic system. The awakening of magic is really good and bad for him. The advantage is that he saved a lot of money, but the disadvantage is that when others broke through to the super level and studied the new system, he was still staying in the old system and quietly improving. Boss Tang, why do I feel that you are much stronger than before? Zhao Manan came over and looked at Tang Mao with surprise and then said, you don't have any secret method of cultivation to replenish yin and yang? You have discovered this. You are really smart. Tang Mao smiled. In fact, it was not only Zhao Manan who felt that Tang Mao's aura was stronger, even Ashiruya and Emo Fan noticed it. However, the two of them did not have Zhao Manan's brain. Boss Tang, Liu Bei seems to have been taken away by the Dark King. Where are you still opponents of black magic? Emo Fan asked. He didn't care much about Tang Mao's getting stronger. After all, it was normal for Tang Mao to break through after being disabled. If there was no change, he would feel it was abnormal. Dark King. Tang Mao paused. Don't say it. After hearing what Emo Fan said, he was really a little surprised. Liu Bei should not have been exposed to any black magic. But if you think about it carefully, the natural force there was completely destroyed by the powerful destructive power of his demon. The demon system is actually also a black magic. Therefore, Liu Bei was taken away by the Dark King. He really couldn't get over it. We are very confused now, because according to the ancient book, only by meeting the Dark King can we have a chance to save Liu Bei. Emo Fan told Tang Mao what Li Xingxia told him. Chapter 652, Rewards and Updates. After listening to their general description of Liu Bei's situation, and describing how painful Liu Bei was, Tang Mao said, he is not as miserable as you think. The Dark Plane also needs talents, and Liu Bei happened to be favored by the Lord of the Plane. Zhao Manan asked in confusion, so he went to the underworld to work. You can understand it that way. Emo Fan, I think we should burn more ghost tickets for him, so that after we die, the dead green tea may be able to take care of us. Zhao Manan looked at Emo Fan again and said, who told you that you will live in the Dark Plane after death? Tang Mao was speechless after hearing this. Then he explained to him, the Dark Plane is the same as our plane. There are birth, aging, sickness and death. The reason why Liu Bei was taken to the Dark Plane is only because of his death, which contains the energy of black magic. If not, the Dark King would not be able to take him away. The Dark King gave the world's human beings black magic. His purpose is to help those powerful mages who died under the black magic. But only when they died under the black magic, he would have the opportunity to take them away and become his slaves. If it were anything else, even the Dark King wouldn't be able to come here and take anyone with him. And the reason why Liu Bei was able to survive until now was actually another main reason, which was that the Dark King had saved him in disguise. Otherwise, let alone being a slave, he would have been dead by now. Should we save him? And how should we save him? Zhao Manan was a little confused. Ashiruya, who had been silent all this time, also spoke up at this time. How do you know so much about the Dark Plane? Speaking of which, there were some things that even she didn't know. She also had her own understanding of darkness, and she was also protected by some dark forces. However, she didn't know what Tang Mao said at all, because my shadow belongs to the clan that fights against the Dark King. Fight against the Dark King. The three of them exclaimed at the same time. Isn't the Dark King the master of the plane? How powerful must the master of the entire plane be? Don't be so surprised. The Dark King has never been a single person. After all, in addition to the Earth, our world also has many other planets. Tang Mao shook his head. As for the Dark King's clones, they are not from a Dark King. After all, it is an entire plane. The Dark King who controls the earth is obviously a person, and this person is most likely the Greek saint Wente. Mubei needs to be saved, and to save him, we need a mineral called sea quartz. Tangmao said again. Sea quartz is a very rare dark mineral. In addition to using its clones to search for the dead in the world that can be used by it, the Dark King also has a biggest hobby, which is to collect sea quartz. Therefore, it is not too difficult to summon the Dark King's clone. That is to find a piece of sea quartz and directly sacrifice it with a dark ritual. Under normal circumstances, the Dark King's clone will appear. If you are lucky enough, the real Dark King may also come. At that time, what you get is huge. In ancient times, the gift of dark magic was done in this way. Really? That means that, if we find this sea quartz, make a deal with the Dark King, and let Mubei go, the matter will be solved. Zhao Manan's eyes lit up after hearing Tangmao's words. I don't think it will be that easy. After all, the most important point of a deal is that both sides are equal in strength. But the Dark King and you, even if you are his clones, I don't think you can handle it. Ashiruai analyzed. Forget it, let's cremate Mubei. In fact, I think with his ambitious appearance, he will definitely be appreciated by the Dark King. Zhao Manan said again, as if he wanted to give up. Can you have some backbone? Emo Fan looked at Zhao Manan with contempt, and he obviously didn't like his appearance. Although he didn't like Mubei at first, it was with the outbreak of the disaster in Bo City, the incident in the ancient capital, and all the things that happened later, that they became brothers. Regardless of whether he has any future in the Dark Plane, Emo Fan himself feels that it is not as comfortable as this world after all. Therefore, he doesn't want to give up on him, if there is any chance. Of course, Zhao Manan was just complaining, and he was still willing to save Mubei from the bottom of his heart. But, do you know where this kind of quartz ore is? Zhao Manan expressed his concerns. Emo Fan shook his head awkwardly. It's not hard to find sea quartz. There are some in Xianshan. At this time, Tangmao spoke up. Xianshan. Yes, I'm going to Xianshan as well, so I'm in time. On Xianshan, there is a little white tiger waiting to join him. In addition to the little white tiger, there is another powerful totem beast, Fei Lion. The last time they met, he really didn't have the strength to subdue it, but this time, he felt that Fei Lion should come to help him. As his strength increased, Tangmao suddenly realized that this world was not as simple as he knew. As for whether Fei Lion was willing to join him, nothing can't be solved by beating him up. If beating him up once doesn't work, then beat him up twice. As a controller, how can he always follow them? It was because Fei Lion didn't attack them last time that Tangmao wanted to subdue him. Otherwise, how could he have a chance to be subdued? Then when do we set off? Tomorrow. Tangmao responded, then looked at Ashiruai and said, let's go, take me to see Norman. Why do you want to see him? Ashiruai paused. As his savior, can't I go to see him? Tangmao asked back. Yes, after leaving here, Ashiruai took Tangmao to the place where the Golden Glory fighting officer lived. As the instructor of the Golden Glory Knights, Norman's status can be imagined. Even if he has been away for a few years, he is still the man with the most say in the Knights Hall. Although Yi Xingxia has obtained the service of several powerful knights in the Parthenon, compared with Norman, these people are almost just younger brothers. The last time Ashiruai acted so pitiful, Tangmao naturally couldn't sit idly by. After all, this girl has really paid too much for him. And to be honest, he was just greedy for her body. After the magic energy was exhausted, it was impossible to recover quickly by itself. The first person he thought of was Ashiruai. Now that he is here, he naturally wants to fight for some benefits for her. Ashiruai didn't know what Tangmao wanted to do with Norman. Even from Tangmao's previous performance, she never thought that Tangmao would want to help her. Chapter 653, Extra Update for the monthly ranking number 1 reward, Ashiruai. When the two arrived at the residence of the Golden Knight, the door opened. Before they could enter, Mr. Tangmao, long time no see. Thank you for your help last time. At this time, Norman came out and said, it seems that you are recovering very quickly. Tangmao looked at Norman from head to toe, and there was almost no injury. Parthenon is not only good at playing tricks, but also still tops in healing. Even though the situation in Parthenon is a bit chaotic now, injuries like Norman's, who only has one breath left, in other places, let alone being so energetic now, even being able to walk normally is already amazing. Thanks to Mr. Tangmao's help, Norman seemed humble. Well, I came to you, do you know why? Tangmao said again. Do you want me to stand on the side? Norman glanced at Asheruaya, and naturally knew something about the rumors about the two. After all, he had been staying in Parthenon almost all the time during the recovery period. Asheruaya was stunned. She looked at Tangmao and saw that he really nodded. Recalling what Tangmao said that day, his support was enough in the Parthenon. If he got Norman's support, it was almost equivalent to controlling 80% of the knights. This is the top combat power even in the international arena. Sir Tangmao, although it is you who saved me, I cannot agree to this request. She is no longer the same as she used to be. I'm worried about handing the Parthenon over to her. Norman's voice was very indifferent, as if there was no human touch to speak of. If you are worried about her, who do you trust? Tangmao asked back. Not at the moment. Norman shook his head. Norman, the world is always changing. You don't think Asheruaya can live peacefully until now, by being a naive person, right? Tangmao said again. I don't blame her, and I understand what you said. Norman is not such a stubborn person. He still understands some things. But understanding doesn't mean I can accept it. As soon as Norman said this, Asheruaya was really a little sad. After all, the two of them are brother and sister. If you can't accept it, I will let the Black Dragon come to protect her. As for whether the people of Parthenon can accept it, whether the people of Athens can accept it, that's your business. Of course, if you have the ability to trick it once like Sulu did, maybe you can also be a dragon slayer. Tangmao said, and he was about to pull Asheruaya away. It's a waste of saliva to talk about positions with such people. So, the Black Dragon is the best toolman at the moment. Of course, Tangmao naturally has no possibility of calling the Black Dragon to the Parthenon. After all, this is the territory of its old friend. Sir Tangmao, are you threatening me? Norman looked at Tangmao with a bad face. To be honest, if it was someone else, Norman would have sent him away now. Threatening himself, Tangmao is really the first one. But the Black Dragon Emperor was rescued by Tangmao, and from the fact that he gave him a set of Black Dragon scales, Tangmao might really be able to find him. But Norman has his own principles. As a principled person, how could he compromise? However, after thinking carefully, Norman can conclude that the Black Dragon is impossible to appear here. After all, this was Wente's territory back then. After thinking it through, Norman continued, you don't have to waste your breath. I won't help you with this favor. You saved my life. If you want to go back, you can come and get it at any time. After a long time of soft and hard words, this guy just refused to agree. This is the first time he has met such a person in his life. Fortunately, Asheruaya said at this time, forget it, even without his help, I can still survive. Anyway, although Norman did not support himself, he did not mean to support others. This is already very good. Tangmao originally wanted to save him to help Asheruaya, but in the end it turned out to be such an ending. It really made him very angry. His temper was always in a state of explosion. With his current strength, even if he didn't turn into a demon, he might not be able to deal with Norman. Of course, Norman himself said that, if he wanted to kill him, he would not resist. This Norman really doesn't know what's good for him. I have never seen such a stubborn person since I was a child. Was Wente like this in the past? Otherwise, how could he educate this fool who is always the same? After Tangmao and Asheruaya returned to her residence, she cursed. Maybe Asheruaya was quite happy to see Tangmao like this. Then, she came to Tangmao and squatted down slowly. Although I didn't get the support of my brother, thank you for doing it for me today. This is a reward for you. After saying that, Asheruaya lowered her head. But this time, Tangmao did not pull her up as she wished. But, I'm not satisfied with this, she said while stretching out her hand. No, it's not possible. Although Asheruaya wanted to give some rewards, she was not prepared to reward herself. Unfortunately, it is not a question of whether she will give it or not. The initiative is not in her hands. Moreover, although she said so, she did not mean to refuse like before. So Tang Mao, who knows women's hearts well, will naturally not miss this opportunity. Ashirua's field is definitely what he wants to explore most at present. Now that he has the opportunity, he will naturally not miss it. If you want to enjoy, you must pay first. How can you enjoy it without paying? Tang Mao can also see that this little hoof is just good at talking. Are you leaving tomorrow? Ashirua, who was drowsy, asked Tang Mao. Now that Tang Mao has recovered and his friend is still in a coma, Tang Mao should be very anxious to leave Parthenon, right? However, as a person who has just experienced a shock like a tidal wave, Ashirua is really reluctant to leave. How could it be? Anyway, Mu Bei is not dead. I don't think it will have any impact if I stay for a few days. Besides, didn't you give me some information? I think I can let one of my friends check it carefully. Tang Mao continued. Well, before he went to Norman, he also thought that he should race against time to get some good things. But half a day after he came back, Tang Mao suddenly changed his mind. It's a rare opportunity to enjoy it. How can I leave in a hurry? No matter which part of her, she can't let it go for several years. I thought that what I couldn't get was the most fragrant, but after getting it, I found that it didn't seem to be the case. Chapter 654, Lassa Reunion. More than 10 days passed unknowingly. Tang Mao also felt the joy of a king not attending court early in the morning. It's really not the fault of the ancient kings for not doing their jobs properly. If such a woman came for 1,000 or 800 years, how could she have time to take care of the government? A corrupt life is the real enjoyment. Although Ashirua didn't have the same basic feelings as Tang Yu, although Ashirua was a little worse than concubine Bran in terms of plumpness, and although she didn't have the fun of playing as the jungler sister Mochizuki Kyanksen, no matter who it was, Tang Mao couldn't let her go like this. Boss Tang, Ling Ling has news about Sea Quartz. It's indeed as you said, it's in Xianshan, but the place where it is located is a trace of Xianshan. Zhao Manan looked at the empty look leaning there and said with both envy and contempt. After all, Ashirua's skin was obviously smoother and tenderer these days than in the past few days. She was originally a charming body, and now it was almost all the temptation released. Okay, I got it. We'll set off tomorrow. Although he was reluctant, strength was still the most important thing at the moment. Although he didn't want to be a king, if he wanted to be worry-free and not be manipulated by anyone, he had to continue to become stronger. In fact, it was only in these few days that Ashirua's relatives came. Damn it. Boss Tang, can you react a little bigger? That's the trace of Xianshan Mountain. You must have heard of this famous forbidden place. The sea quartz we are looking for is in the trace of Xianshan Mountain, a place that never sees the sun, is as cold as hell on earth, with powerful demons and alien species that are transformed, and as ancient, and can be traced back to the origin of totems and the origin of mankind. Zhao Manan continued to remind. There are many famous evil places and black areas in China, but the Xianshan crack is a real forbidden place for humans. People who entered it never came out again, or people who had been there decades ago suddenly appeared. People who walked out of it don't remember anything that happened there, and those who didn't walk out have no chance to tell it. It is mysterious and terrifying, with countless folk legends, and there are also many legendary figures who have obtained huge treasures and transformed from it. However, no matter whether it is the warriors who buried their bones quietly in the snow scar or the legendary figures who are famous, no one is willing to mention anything that happened in the Xianshan crack. I know, it's not like I haven't been to Xianshan before, don't be so surprised. Besides, there should be several totem beasts alive in Xianshan. Tang Mao waved his hand and said, I believe this. Zhao Manan nodded. Speaking of it, totems are of great help to us. Since we have totems, what are we waiting for? Let's set off now. Mo Fan also got the sweetness of totems. When he heard about totem beasts, he was instantly full of energy. Before, they were discussing saving Mu Bei, but when it comes to the totem, they can put aside the fact that Mu Bei is in danger. People will die eventually. Mu Bei's early death can only be said to be a bad fate. Whether it is Zhao Manan or Mo Fan, they can sleep with the girls that Mu Bei didn't sleep with. They set off as soon as they said they would, and naturally they had to collect information about the totem locally. Although Tang Mao knew where the little white tiger and fairy lion were, there were still some things he didn't know. If they could dig up a little, it would obviously be great. In China, the Oriental Pearl Tower and the Hunter Building are indeed the places with the most information circulation in the country and the world, but things like totems and xixing that are almost never preached by people are difficult to reach across so many cities in such a vast country. They set off from Parthenon, and Jiangshaoxu and Lingling also set off from Yuxu New City. Everyone was ready to meet in Lhasa. Tang Mao didn't mean to leave with the people from Parthenon. He took a plane and headed for Lhasa. Lingling told us to wait here in the square. Mo Fan glanced at his phone. It was a message from Lingling. Then wait here. Zhao Manan looked around, admiring the various girls. Hey, look at that girl over there. Oh my god, that girl over there looks so fierce. She must be at least at the peak of DTSK. Her legs are so white. Doesn't she know it's cold? It was just a boring wait, but with Zhao Manan, the old pig, pointing a girl down, Tang Mao and Mo Fan were instantly full of energy. The three young and promising guys, especially Tang Mao, who was good looking, quickly attracted a few female students who came here to play. The few of them were chatting happily, and at this moment, Zhao Manan suddenly said, "Boss Tang, Lingling and the others are here." Oh. Tang Mao paused and looked back. Sure enough, as he thought, it was not just Lingling and Jiangshaoxu who came, but also Muningsu and Apis. Apis's molting period has passed, and as Tang Mao's strength recovered, she also regained her new strength. Although Tang Mao's summoning system is still high level, her other magic systems have reached the super level, so her strength can be exerted by 70% or even 80%. That is to say, Apis can now exert the strength of a great monarch. You are here too? However, Tang Mao's eyes obviously did not look at Apis at the first time, but looked at Muningsu and Jiangshaoxu. Tang Mao was somewhat uncomfortable with the two of them coming together, but Jiangshaoxu came directly over, with a look of swearing sovereignty, and hugged Tang Mao's arm, looking at the several junior sisters in front of him and said, "Are you suffering from the same old problem again? You are not right to say that." Apis also spoke at this time, but before Tang Mao thought that the little girl was sensible, he heard again, "He is already a terminal illness, just a dog in heat." What old problem? What dog in heat? What are you two talking about? Isn't it Mo Fan who wants to get to know the junior sisters? Tang Mao immediately threw the blame. Mo Fan's mouth twitched slightly, but he didn't refute anything at this time. But it was obviously not him who attracted the girls to come and chat. When they saw the woman who was in close contact with Tang Mao, they left without interest. Regarding the situation of Jiangshaoxu and Tang Mao, Muningsu was the same as usual. Her cold look gave people a special temperament, that everything had nothing to do with her, and no strangers were allowed to enter. After all, she already knew it when she was training in the government office. Moreover, she was used to it. Jiangshaoxu and Muningsu both knew the relationship between each other and Tang Mao, but in fact, until now, neither of them had made it clear. Lingling ate melons on the side, but didn't eat much. Chapter 655, Snake Queen overturns. Then several people found a hotel. Of course, everyone had their own room. However, Jiangshaoxu said that he wanted to share a room with Apis and let Muningsu and Lingling go. Tang Mao knew exactly what this scheming woman was thinking. Didn't she just want to occupy her place alone? Apis obviously didn't mind this. After all, it didn't matter who she was with. Muningsu didn't care much about this either. As for whether she really didn't care, that was unclear. After finding a place to stay, everyone went to look for information about totems and the trace of the Xianshan Mountains. Tang Mao was a lazy person. He didn't even think about getting involved in looking for totems and information. And Apis was taken back by him before she even left the hotel. "What are you doing?" Apis looked at the surrounding environment and said with some dissatisfaction after she turned into the room. Of course, she wasn't looking for any information, but she came to a place with a large flow of customers and she wanted to go shopping. After all, this was her second hobby in the human world. You little snake, when daddy was injured, you didn't even think of coming to see me. Aren't you afraid that I'll really die? Tang Mao casually threw her on the sofa and continued. Apis glared at Tang Mao, then snorted coldly. Humans like you can usually live for a long time. After all, don't you Chinese say that good people don't pay for their lives and bad people never die? Tang Mao's mouth twitched slightly. That's right, let me check it carefully. Is it more moist? After molting, Tang Mao approached, looking like I'll check it out. Apis put her little hand on Tang Mao's chest and refused. No, I'm going shopping. You can serve me when I come back. Serve you? Lowly servant, aren't you serving me? Apis chuckled. Anyway, she was enjoying it every time. Isn't this just being served in disguise? And if she thought about it this way, she felt that Tang Mao was no longer her contract master, but she had found a good male slave. Sizzle. Tang Mao was too lazy to talk nonsense with her. After the little snake girl shed her skin, she seemed to have matured a lot. Compared with Jiang Shaoxu and Muningxu, it was obviously more fragrant that she could come and go at her will. And Apis was also shocked by her words. This time, she even cried and begged for mercy. Just when she had the hope of turning over as a queen, she was beaten back to her original form. In the end, the long-lost nutritional supplement almost fed her to her fullness. In the evening, several people came back from asking for news and found that Tang Mao and Apis were sitting in the lobby. One was energetic and the other was listless. When Jiang Shaoxu saw the two of them, although there was some confusion between men and women, he immediately understood what they had done that day. You two are actually lazy, Jiang Shaoxu said to the two of them in dissatisfaction. Tang Mao smiled awkwardly and had no intention of joining in. And Apis? She would only respond when she was making trouble. When her bones were about to fall apart, she just wanted to be a beautiful girl quietly. He then asked, what news have you found? Jiang Shaoxu was immediately led astray by Tang Mao and replied, I did gain a lot today. There seems to be a holy totem beast in Xianshan. Its status may be higher than that of Zuanwu. I know this, even if you don't tell me, and I have seen it. Tang Mao replied. You have seen it. Jiang Shaoxu did not question this. After all, the snow girl was the one Tang Mao contracted when he came to Xianshan. In other words, Tang Mao had been to Xianshan before. Of course, I'm the totem master. When I come here, it must appear and worship me, right? Jiang Shaoxu didn't believe a word of this full of water, but still asked, what kind of totem beast is it? White tiger. Is it true that the holy beast White Tiger is still alive? Jiang Shaoxu continued. Obviously, she was very interested in this kind of totem creature. Dead. Tang Mao shook his head. You can still see it after it's dead. Are you kidding me? Jiang Shaoxu pouted, just getting interested. But this is it? Question mark. It's a sacred beast. Even if it's dead, its soul is not dead. Moreover, it's not extinct. Its direct descendants are already being cultivated. Tang Mao continued. It's so magical. Can you take me to see it? Jiang Shaoxu, who inherited his brother's way, really wanted to see this rare totem sacred beast. I'm afraid you can't see it, because I didn't see it when I came last time. Tang Mao said again. This time it's not that he doesn't want to, but he can't nothing. Jiang Shaoxu didn't want to talk to Tang Mao immediately. This man is so bad. He aroused her curiosity, but he looked like he couldn't see anything. It's outrageous. It's too much. Don't worry, I said Xianshan is not just one totem, and although you can't see the white tiger, I can take you to see another equally strong totem beast. Tang Mao said again. Oh my god. Even if my brother has traveled thousands of miles, he has not encountered many creatures like totem beasts, and he has only seen their traces, but not the real thing. You are not really the totem leader, are you? Although Jiang Shaoxu's brother knew many traces of totem beasts, most of them were just traces. Of course, he mainly wanted to find that kind of holy totem. He should know that a totem is not very helpful to China. But once the leader totem of the totem tribe is found, the help to China will definitely be different. Of course, the premise is that the totem holy beast is willing to help. Otherwise, it will be in vain. But after searching for so long, except for a feather, that seems to be the holy beast Suzaku. Jiang Shaoxu's brother has found almost nothing about the whereabouts of the totem holy beast. Tang Mao is good. He hardly looks for totems, but whenever he appears in a place with a totem, he always pulls the other party out. Zuansh, Baksha, and Umo Huang are now reduced to workers. 3 Monarch level totems help guard the house. Yuxu New City is one of the top security places in the country. Of course, my territory will become a place for totems to live in. Tang Mao continued. He has always wanted to subdue our group of totems as his younger brothers. Chapter 656, National Government Team. After collecting some information, everyone set out for Pantown. Pantown, located at the southern foot of Xianshan Mountain, is very different from some other special post stations, because its appearance is indeed as mentioned before, because the relatives of those missing people in Xianshan Mountain are looking forward to their return, and spontaneously built wooden houses in a river belt at the foot of Xianshan Mountain to live in, gradually forming villages and towns. Later, those who wanted to go to Xianshan Mountain also went to Pantown in order to seek supplies and convenient accommodation, and developed it into a starting point for the southern part of Xianshan Mountain. Hunters, explorers, mercenaries, students, and practitioners have gradually filled this town. There are not many local people in Xinjiang, most of them are outsiders, and this town is really very big, almost half of a small city. It's really lively here. It's hard to imagine that this is a small town, Zhao Manan said. Besides, there are many mid-level mages. Aren't they afraid of death? Mo Fan also said. To enter the glacier snow layer, one must be of higher level. There are at least 5,000 or 6,000 mages in Pantown, but none of them have reached higher level. Although it can be seen that the mages who come here are obviously not idiots, their overall strength and fighting spirit are much higher than other places. But a mid-level mage is only a mid-level mage after all. In Xianshan, even a high-level mage may not be safe. I really don't know what these people are thinking. Xianshan is so big, and it is divided into many layers according to different altitudes. There are so many mages, and not all of them are heading for the glacier snow layer. There are also many treasures in the other layers. Lingling explained. Hey, you four, do you have our badges in the government? Jiang Shaoxu suddenly asked. Yes, this thing is quite useful. It can find the location of other people. Zhao Manan replied. I have never worn it. Tang Mao shrugged. Jiang Shaoxu directly ignored Tang Mao, who had never cared about the identity of the government, and at this time Muningsu also took out the badge of the government. The material of the government badge is special. It is made of fluorescent film from the same soul stone. It can be used to sense each other's position through the intensity of the light. If the distance is too far, the government badge will not have much effect. It can only provide a general direction like a compass. If the distance is close, the badge will light up. The government badge is customized for identity. Now everyone who has walked out of the government has won. Although they have graduated and completed the World University competition, everyone keeps it as a souvenir. Why is it lit? Is it because we are standing close to each other? Muningsu asked in confusion. No, there are others. Jiang Shaoxu said. You mean, there are other people from the government nearby? The three of them reacted immediately, and Tang Mao was not surprised. Let's follow the light and find out if that guy has come to Xianshan to seek death. Jiang Shaoxu said with a smile. Although some people who participated in the government competition together can't play together, there are also good relationships. Following the guidance of the badge, a group of 7 people walked on the main road of Pantown. People were coming and going on the road, and the badges were shining brighter and brighter, flashing faster and faster, almost continuously. We should be almost there, Zhao Manan said, looking at the badge in his hand. Yeah, we are very close, Mo Fan replied. I said, you too, can't you just look up and look ahead? Tang Mao looked at AI Jiang in front of him, and curled his lips. When the two looked up, they found a dark copper face standing on the street. He was wearing a brown linen coat and a fur scarf that made him look even more heroic. AI Jiang stood there, looking at Tang Mao and others who were walking towards him with a look of surprise. Damn, isn't this Captain AI? Zhao Manan said. I didn't expect you all to be here. I thought someone came to Xianshan on his own. AI Jiang was also confused. He didn't expect to run into 5 old members of the national government in such a place. No more words. Let's go have a few drinks somewhere. Haha. Jiang Xiaoxu seemed very happy. I'll take you to meet a few people first. AI Jiang smiled and said immediately. The others were a little confused, but Tang Mao asked directly, who did you come with? You'll know when you get there. AI Jiang said mysteriously. Because Tang Mao and the others were going to meet old teammates, Ling Ling said she was not interested and just went to hang out. Apathy was not interested in this kind of thing either, so she followed her and left. Of course, Ling Ling looked disgusted, while Apathy said that she would protect her sister. On a large table, Tang Mao, Mo Fan, Zhao Manyan, Jiang Xiaoxu, and Mu Ningxu sat on one side, and Ai Jiang Tu, Nanju, Jiang Yu, and Guan Yu sat opposite. Apparently, almost no one expected to gather together again in this way. Is this a class reunion? Jiang Yu asked first. Who would have thought that you guys would come here and come together as a team? Tang Mao shrugged. We didn't expect you to come here either. After saying that, everyone laughed. This seems to be a coincidence, but it has to be said that it is too coincidental. It's like this. Several instructors invited us from the north to go to the capital to teach some students, so we had a small gathering. Leo AI said that he planned to leave the army temporarily for some time and go out to gain experience. Jiang Yu, Guan Yu and I all had this idea. It just so happened that we heard that a great rift valley appeared in Xianshan Mountain a while ago, leading to the trace of Xianshan Mountain, so we simply didn't go back and came to Xianshan Mountain right away. Nanju explained to everyone with a smile. Nanju is a person with a very plain temperament, but you can see that her eyes are also shining with joy at this time. Tang Mao hasn't seen this tomboy for a long time. Although he doesn't like this kind of neutral beauty, Nanju seems to have matured a lot, especially this pair of beautiful legs, which are becoming more and more radiant. However, just when he was admiring the beautiful legs, Jiang Xiaoxu directly reached out and pinched his flesh. This sour and refreshing feeling almost made Tang Mao immediately withdraw his gaze from the beautiful legs. After watching this scene, Nanju snorted and said, Tang Mao, it's been so long since we last met. You are more or less a celebrity now. Can you please stop embarrassing yourself? It's been a long time since I last saw you. I miss you for a while. Nanju rolled her eyes at him. Was she missing the person or the leg? If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelos. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 657. Follow the group. He was just curious for a moment. After all, Nanju's beautiful legs were wrapped tightly at this time, and he couldn't see anything at all. Moreover, Tang Mao felt that the temperature on the left side had dropped a lot. As for the right side, Jiang Xiaoxu would greet him from time to time, which was quite outrageous. A truly powerful mage must go to Xianshan no matter what. AI Jiang seemed to be obsessed with Xianshan. Speaking of which, many people have this obsession with Xianshan. It's just that everyone came together at a very clever time, which made the few people who were originally hesitant and awed by the mystery and danger of Xianshan more confident. When do you plan to leave? Zhao Manyan asked. It would be better if you arrived earlier. The 4 of us joined a mercenary group. After all, we are not well prepared for the climate, ice invasion and wind blast, terrain, distribution of demons, and emergencies in Xianshan. Collecting that information alone is theoretical and will not play a very good role. Jiang Yu said. In fact, it doesn't need to be so troublesome. Just follow me. I'm familiar with Xianshan. Tang Mao said. Is there anyone you don't know? You're the only one who knows. Jiang Xiaoxu didn't believe Tang Mao's words at all. After all, this guy is a typical road idiot. Tang Mao thought about it. In fact, he was not very familiar with it. The first time he came, he had the black snake following him, and he had no obstacles along the way. The second time, he still had the black snake and the white tiger of Xianhun to protect him, and he had no obstacles along the way. Even if he encountered trouble, he solved it easily. But this time, he didn't bring the black snake, so there was nothing to worry about his safety. His strength was enough to protect himself. Cheyenne White Tiger probably wouldn't show up to find him this time. After all, there were really too many humans around him. So, Tang Mao chose to remain silent. How about this? You can also join this mercenary group with us. They are short of people. When the time comes, let the leader assign you to our team. Follow the main force and you can avoid many problems. Nanju invited again at this time. Once the environment is extremely harsh, the level of cultivation is not very meaningful. The main thing is rich experience and wisdom in dealing with things. As a person with poor sense of direction, and after everyone thought that following a group was reliable, Tang Mao had no choice but to compromise. Under the leadership of Ai Jiangtu and others, they successfully entered the 9th division of the Melang mercenary group. It can be seen that Ai Jiangtu has a good relationship with the deputy leader of the mercenary group. Otherwise such a mercenary group with relatively stable personnel would not easily accept a strange mage. The Melang mercenary group is quite famous in Asia, and its members are extremely powerful. The orders they accept are not called bounties. They dare to accept some disputes in various countries in the Middle East. After entering such a large mercenary group, Zhao Manan felt much more at ease during this trip to Xianshan. After all, Tang Mao can fight, but sometimes, if the harsh environment in some places and various natural disasters occur, even if he can fight, it is not necessarily the safest. After all, he can fight himself, but the few people who followed him don't have this ability. Moreover, Tang Mao is immune to some toxins, which is the most incomparable thing between them. I heard that the Melang mercenary group has its own city in the Middle East. Jiang Xiaoxu asked, after entering the team. Well, they have their own city, and like some governments, they mainly collect taxes. But their main business is still hiring and exploration. This time, they were sponsored by the Liden royal family to explore the Xianshan Scar. On the one hand, they wanted to give the Liden royal family more titles and collections for conquering the world, and on the other hand, they wanted to find the Xianshan Snow Lotus for the seriously ill princess. Ai Jiangtu said to everyone, the Liden royal family is rich after all. Zhao Manan sighed. Your Zhao family also has a flag, and hired one of the best hunting groups in our country. Guan Yu said at the right time. Zhao Manan did not respond. Of course, he could not respond. The Zhao family came here, probably to find the Xianshan Snow Lotus. Merchants look for profits, and they will not miss anything that is profitable. That's good. They look for their Xianshan Snow Lotus, and we look for our totem. Zhao Manan said. What totem? Nanju's eyes suddenly lit up and asked. Zhao Manan obviously realized that he was talking too much, so he wanted to shut up. Tang Mao said bluntly, of course it is the totem beast that once guarded the land of China. Like the big snake in Hangzhou? Jiang Yu's eyes lit up. What big snake in Hangzhou? That's the guard snake of my house. Tang Mao waved his hand. The black snake used to belong to Hangzhou, but after he arrived, it completely belonged to him. However, Ai Jiangtu and others obviously didn't believe what Tang Mao said. Nanju continued, then what totem are you looking for here? We are here mainly to find a kind of, or called sea quartz to save a friend, and by the way, to find the descendants of the holy totem White Tiger. Tang Mao replied. White Tiger, the White Tiger you said, does it really exist? After all, the era of totems has passed for too long, so not everyone knows about totems. Even if they know, they just regard it as a myth. So when they heard what Tang Mao said, they were inevitably a little surprised. It can be said that it exists, or it can be said that it does not exist. The old generation of white tigers has fallen, and the current one is just a little white tiger that has not grown up. Tang Mao explained again. All the members of the Guofu team who had trained together were here. Although Guan Yu had some shortcomings in the past, they were now considered friends. There was nothing to hide. Besides, if he took the little white tiger away by himself, what would happen? Even if someone knew about it? Then Ling Ling and the others told about the Shinan Holy Tiger here, such as the things given to Xiao Zheng. Although the Shinan Holy Tiger did exist, its number was extremely rare. Moreover, they were the descendants of the White Tiger, but the difference was that they had no good intentions towards humans. But after listening to their stories, Tang Mao was too lazy to tell them. I don't know about the totem, but I know something about Xixing. Nanju said again. It's hard to find it. We spent so much effort to find clues and insiders, and in the end Nanju, knew it. They really didn't know much about Xixing, but they didn't expect Nanju to have research on this thing. I don't think many people in the country know about sea quartz. I'm telling you that those who come to Xianshan to look for it are experts. Nanju said. Can you help us find it? This is related to a person's life. Zhao Manan said. It's hard to say, let's give it a try. In the past thousands of years, many mages used sea quartz as a bargaining chip to trade with the Dark King and obtained the power of darkness. Now sea quartz is really too rare. It takes hundreds of thousands or millions of years for its formation to evolve. Nowadays, there are few that can keep the landform unchanged for 100,000 years. There may be some in the extreme south, and then here. Nanju said. After hearing about the extreme south, Mo Fan and Zhao Manan felt that Mubei could rest in peace. Xianshan is a forbidden place for humans. The extreme south is a place more terrifying than Xianshan. They don't have the courage to take risks. Chapter 658, The Wilderness Without Legal Protection, Rewards and More. The next day, AI Jiangtu introduced the 7 of them to the 9th squad of the mercenary group. The deputy head of the mercenary group was a woman of Indian descent. She had dark skin and a big nose. She exuded a sporty aura and was as wild as a female leopard. When she saw that among the 7 people of Tang Mao, 4 were beautiful girls, and Lingling and Apis were still so young, she showed some displeasure on her face. Well, they have a lot of information. Don't worry, we can guarantee their safety if anything goes wrong. AI Jiangtu could only bite the bullet and say to the deputy head Kuma, I'm not worried about their safety, but I'm worried about their purity. The mercenaries under my command obey orders, but they are all wild beasts that can lose their minds at any time. After all, the Xianshan Mountains are a barren world without laws. As a woman, Kuma spoke frankly about this situation and made it clear that, if such a thing happened, she would not interfere. I think you should remind your subordinates more often instead of worrying about us, so that they won't die without knowing how they were killed by my servants. After she finished speaking, Apis smiled. When the deputy leader Kuma heard this, one eyebrow rose, and then he laughed like a rough man, saying, interesting, I will remind you warmly. The male and mercenary group is indeed mostly men. Occasionally, some female mages are seen. Most of them are like the deputy leader Kuma, and their sturdiness and toughness are not inferior to men. Nanju, who is dressed in neutral clothes in the team, is fine. She even dresses herself as a man when she goes out. Muningsu, Jiang Shaoxu, Apis, and Lingling are completely different. They look no different from the weak young ladies in the city. Each one is more beautiful than the other, and you will feel blood rushing all over your body if you look at them for a few more times. However, what Apis said is not wrong. With Tang Mao, who regards them as forbidden delicacies, coming to harass them is tantamount to seeking death. They may not even know how they died. Moreover, even if Tang Mao was not there, only Jiang Shaoxu and Lingling were weaklings. Whether it was Apis or Muningsu, there were few strong ones in the whole team. Then, the deputy leader arranged a few more idiots, just to fill in the numbers. With the entry of Muningsu, Jiang Shaoxu, Apis, and Zhao Lingling, the whole Meilan mercenary group was a little agitated. Those who whistled, and there were even more people who talked nonsense. Seeing this, Tang Mao stopped. Seeing this, AI Jiangtu hurried forward to stop him. Don't worry, I won't kill anyone. Tang Mao waved his hand, then looked at the mercenaries in front of him who looked amused, and said in a calm voice, like you, I also like the land without laws, because my pets haven't felt the blood of bastards for a long time. The moment Tang Mao finished speaking, Zunu, Yanji, and Zhao Hei suddenly appeared here. Of course, the little Fengji also ran out unwilling to be outdone. However, compared to the 3 of them, it was just a little baby. After all, it was only at the commander level. However, even a command level Fengji made many mercenaries shut up, not to mention the 3 snow girls who exuded the aura of a tyrannical monarch. The mercenaries who had just wanted to tease the girls were now as obedient as a grandson, not daring to breathe. and the deputy head was also shocked. Even for a mage who majored in summoning, it would be extraordinary to have a monarch level summoned creature at this age. But Tang Mao has 3. As for why Tang Mao could summon 4 monarch level creatures, at this moment, no one obviously thought about it. After all, even the weakest one at present is at the middle commander level. The most important thing is that these contracted summoned creatures are almost all elemental darlings, right? Question mark? As mercenaries who walk in the wild all year round, they still have some insight. I will pass on your words to everyone here, said the deputy leader Kuma, looking at Apis and Tang Mao. She finally understood. No wonder a few people dared to bring such beautiful women here. It turned out that they were powerful. She really didn't care about the mercenaries venting, but she would never watch them die. In fact, compared to the shock of the mercenary group, Ai Jiangtu, Nanju, Guanyu, and Jiangyu, who had not seen each other for a long time, were also stunned for a while. Especially Jiangyu. He felt that in front of Tang Mao, he couldn't say that he was a major in the summoning department. This fucking major is not as good as a minor. Although it has been a long time since the graduation of the National Mansion, everyone has been promoted to the superclass stage one after another. But looking at the situation of Tang Mao's summoned beast, they understood that they were left behind without knowing it. The Xianshan Great Rift Valley is not in this grassland area, but it has to bypass several low altitude mountains under the Xianshan Mountains and enter the desert area. The Melan mercenary group was considered to be late in setting off. When the whole group of more than 100 people arrived at the entrance of the Xianshan Great Rift Valley in the desert layer, many mages had already stopped there and set up some temporary tents or built some earth houses with magic. The Great Rift Valley is a new land. Even if you don't enter the trace of Xianshan, there are still many treasures hidden in it. It stands to reason that after the mages learned the news, they should race against time to enter it and plunder the treasures in the Great Rift Valley as much as possible. How could they set up tents like now? After arriving here, everyone stopped. Deputy Captain Kuma ordered the captain of the 3rd squad beside him to go and find out the situation. However, Tang Mao and his group did not place any idiots or trash. Although they were still the last, they also received corresponding respect. In this demonic land, with powerful teammates following, as a member of this team, you will have a sense of security. The captain of the 3rd squad was also an old hand. He quickly found out the situation. After finding out the situation, Captain Tommy of the 3rd squad ran back and said to the deputy Captain Kuma, "It seems that there was a flood in the Great Rift Valley, which buried and swallowed up a team of hunters who entered half a day ago. It's just a small situation. As for scaring these people, don't forget that this is Xianshan, the land of the brave," the mercenary group's chief said. It's not that simple. The flood seems to occur at irregular intervals, and the destructive power is quite strong. Especially if we are in the Great Rift Valley and suddenly encounter a flood, there is no escape, and it is even more impossible to stop it. Tommy, who had inquired about the news, shook his head and said, "We have so many people." Before the regiment manager could finish, Tommy, who was asking for information, said, "It can't be stopped. The Xianshan Great Rift Valley itself is a terrain that gradually sinks from the highest altitude. Especially in places where the rift slope is extremely long, the floods are constantly rolling and bringing in more mud, sand, and rocks while becoming more turbulent and fierce. Unless they calm down on their own in some flat areas, they will be smashed and buried alive." Chapter 659 Desert Bone-Eating Spider. At the end of the Melan mercenary group, Mo-Fan, who had gone to the front to gather information, came back and told the team about the stop. After learning about these things, Lingling, who had done the investigation, told him how to deal with it. Then Mo-Fan went back and told the deputy leader Kuma. After Mo-Fan repeated Lingling's words, she believed it. Moreover, it can be seen that the young men and women in this team are obviously not here to gild themselves. Instead, they really have an understanding of this place. They immediately expressed their goodwill. Then the people of the Melan mercenary group began to move forward. Human beings are creatures that especially like to follow the trend. As the Melan mercenary group stepped in so forcefully, those hesitant mage groups also followed behind. The Great Rift Valley is not just a long and tedious road. After entering it, there will be countless forks in the Great Rift Valley. No one can tell which one is the road that continues to lead to higher altitudes. After all, the Great Rift Valley is too long. When you are in one of the valley roads, you can't tell whether the terrain is flat or rising. Moreover, the rising valley road is not necessarily unobstructed. It is possible to walk a few kilometers and end up at a dead end. The Great Rift Valley can be called a maze. There are winding, forked, interconnected, and circuitous roads. Sometimes you don't even know how to go back. After seeing the team stop again, Tang Mao shrugged and said, "I think they don't know much about this place. Maybe they didn't do as much homework as you did." AI Jiangtu also said helplessly. In fact, the homework was all done by Lingling. Of course, as for the expenses, of course they came from me. Although Tang Mao knew about it, he couldn't blame the cute little Lingling. However, when he thought of the 1 or 200 million yuan, he felt a pain in his heart. He regretted that he went to fool around with Ashurua that day and left this matter to Lingling. He regretted that he came here and was intimate with Apis and forgot to stop Lingling. Unfortunately, there is no regret medicine in the world. Just when the two were chatting, the deputy leader Kuma came over. After watching Tang Mao express his politeness, he asked, "Sir, do you know how to go next?" Tang Mao obviously didn't know anything and immediately looked at the two little lollies. "Lingling, tell her how to go. Go in the direction where the flood will come." Lingling responded. When he saw that it was such a little girl who spoke, Kuma subconsciously thought that this person was joking with him. But just as she was about to speak, she suddenly realized something and smiled with enlightenment. Yes, the flood of rocks came from the melting of the frost on the upper level. They must have arrived here along a smooth road. How smart. At this time, Lingling said in a calm voice, "I advise you not to camp here." Rather than saying that the cave is full of fesses, it is better to say that it is full of digested bones. Kuma was stunned again. "My people have checked the area and there are no signs of any demonic activities. The spiders that left fesses have left." She naturally paid attention to such things and sent people to check the situation nearby. It was that Tang Mao's previous deterrence was too shocking. Otherwise, she would definitely teach this little girl a lesson. "It means that your people are not very good. Have you checked up there?" Lingling asked calmly, as if she was looking at a fool. Kuma was stunned again. After being reminded by Lingling, Kuma immediately walked to a wall of the Rift Valley that rose to a higher level and pressed his palm on the stone wall. In a few minutes, Kuma's face changed drastically. "Prepare for the fight." However, before she could say anything, a loud shout came from the front. The captain of the third squad, Tommy, who was in charge of asking about the situation, was confused when he heard this and asked in confusion, "Fight? There are no demons nearby?" A younger brother next to him also said, "I checked it before." "How did you check it? Don't you know to look up there?" Kuma had returned to the front of the team at this time, looking at Tommy with great anger. At this time, the mercenaries carefully checked the top of the stone wall. "Here, up there, my god, it's a desert bone-eating spider." A mercenary shouted. "There are also here. There are also here." For a while, all kinds of panicked voices kept coming out. They all have extremely fat venom glands, and their pointed heads look like the hideous and vicious appearance of evil women. Their slender and soft claws can completely stick to the vertical stone wall, and they will not make any footsteps during the rapid movement. The magician's vigilance is mostly detected through the sound of footsteps, but these desert bone-eating spiders do not make any sound when they walk, which is why their famous mercenary group has not discovered them for so long. "What are you panicking about? Kill as many as you can. These bastards thought we were here to deliver food to them. We must let them know how powerful the Melan mercenary group is." Deputy Head Kuma said in a loud voice. After she gave the order, the team that had just set up camp began to set up a large formation in an instant. However, they were all members of the mercenary group and reacted quickly enough, but Tang Mao and his group were very embarrassed and did not notice this at all. Unconsciously, they were isolated outside. In fact, they were not isolated. They just did not react when others started to form a formation. "What should I do?" Zhao Manan asked. When AI Jiangtu was about to speak, Tang Mao spoke first. "Take care of yourself and leave the rest to me." I haven't moved my tibia for a long time, and it feels a little rusty. With so many soul fragments and spirit essences being sent to him at this time, why would he refuse to accept them? Fan also came to the other side. He never liked to just sit back and watch when it came to killing monsters and exploding spirit essences. After seeing the two people standing up on the left and right, Nanju covered his head and said helplessly, "Why do these two guys still like to fight so much?" Jiangyu smiled and said, "This will save us a lot of trouble. There's nothing wrong with it." Sure enough, when teaming up with Tang Mao and Fan in the wild, we really don't have to worry about being besieged by monsters. Have you noticed that these desert bone-eating spiders have no intention of coming down to attack? The place where they are is just right. Oh my god, these two beasts. Chapter 660 Ambush. Jiangyu was about to say something, but just when he was out of the range of magic attack, he saw Tang Mao and Fan's fire wave attack, and nearly 100 desert bone-eating spiders were instantly killed. Although Fan's side did not kill as many as Tang Mao's fire wave, the moment the thunder landed, he also instantly killed 40 or 50. And those desert bone-eating spiders also began to retreat continuously. Originally, the humans here were unprotected, and there were few people here, so they were easy to hunt. But who would have thought that these mages who were not in the formation would be so fierce? As for the mercenary group, although they cooperated very well, the range of magic attack could not cause effective damage to the desert bone-eating spiders. After seeing this scene, one of the team members said, "Evacuate here. After all, if they continue to waste like this, there will be absolutely no benefit for them." Kuma also felt that there was something wrong with these desert bone-eating spiders, so he asked the team members to move to a wider road. As soon as they moved, the desert bone-eating spiders started to move. They made quite subtle crawling sounds. As the entire mercenary group moved, they also moved their positions. Move to Kuaksha. Once we get there, these things can only climb on the stone walls on both sides of us. If they dare to follow us again, we will catch them all in one fell swoop. Gavin, the head of the group, suggested. After watching the mercenaries move forward, the government team also moved forward. The mercenaries continued to move forward. About 500 to 600 meters away was Kuaksha. It was a relatively direct large crack with a width of about 300 meters. There was the sky above their heads and rock cliffs on both sides. The desert bone-eating spiders could not hide in the cracks of those rugged and strange rocks. After moving forward for about another 100 meters, the people of the Melan mercenary group began to be frightened. The desert bone-eating spiders behind them were no longer following them, but the rocks on both sides, and above their heads, were all covered with these desert bone-eating spiders, which made the originally pure brown rock wall look scary and hideous, and there were pairs of eyes that were as frightening as stars. The scene in front of them was almost like a carefully set trap, and everyone was a little panicked for a while. At this time, there was a sudden wailing of several people. When the sound came out, everyone realized that 3 of the team members were missing for no reason. Exclamation mark. Seeing this, everyone had to retreat to the back again. At this time, Tang Mao thought of something, and then he flashed and left the place. The next moment, Tang Mao's figure came to the side of the deputy leader Kuma. "Leave here immediately and find a long slope that goes against the current. The reason why these desert bone-eating spiders didn't attack is because they are waiting for the flood and waiting for us to be buried alive," Tang Mao said. After he arrived here, Kuma, the head of the regiment, and several captains of the mercenary teams were all stunned when they heard Tang Mao's voice. They all looked surprised when they turned around. Here, each of them has a high level of cultivation, but Tang Mao could appear behind them silently, and it was still very sudden? Question mark? This level of cultivation is very scary. It's quite outrageous. However, the level of cultivation is obviously just the appetizer, and what shocked Kuma even more was what Tang Mao said later. "There is a flood. Sir, are you sure?" Kuma asked. "If you don't believe it, then you can continue to wait here." Tang Mao glanced at Kuma and said. Kuma also knew that people with strong strength will always be a little arrogant. He immediately apologized and continued, "But it's a problem for us to move forward now. We are all in the same team. I can help you clear the way. I think everyone should be prepared to face death when they come here. It's up to you to die here together or rush out." Tang Mao's figure disappeared immediately after he finished speaking. He didn't give Kuma any chance to think. Of course, this wave of operations shocked them again. They didn't even feel that Tang Mao used magic, but people disappeared just like that, and their breath was not noticeable at all. Exclamation mark. After Tang Mao returned, he looked at the people behind him and said, "I'll clear the way in front. Be careful around you. Be careful, these desert bone-eating spiders may be only a few meters or even closer to you, and you won't even have time to release magic." Nanju reminded. At this moment, Tang Mao's body suddenly emanated a scorching and extremely hot flame. After the flame suddenly broke out, Nanju felt that her reminder was somewhat redundant. I'm behind him, helping him deal with the targets in the blind spot of his vision. Muningsu followed up at this time, one step faster than everyone else. As they set off, the members of the Melan mercenary group followed them, and everyone kept a relatively fast speed. At the same time, just as they were about to escape, the desert bone-eating spiders that had been hiding on the rocks moved. This time they were no longer testing, and they obviously knew that the group was going to escape, so these spiders fell from the cliffs, stone walls, and cracks above like black rain, and frantically bit the mercenary members who were fleeing here. Skyflame funeral. Hoo 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 hoo. Puff puff puff. As the fire rain fell from the sky, the desert bone-eating spiders on the cliffs in the air were almost turned into ashes as soon as they were touched by the flames. The most important thing is that they did not just die as simply as themselves, but their companions were almost burned to ashes by the sudden arrival of the flames. As for the protective colored desert bone-eating spiders lurking along the way ahead, for Tang Mao, there was no resistance at all. As long as the opponent showed his body, he would be immediately greeted by a wave of flames. A high-level rain of fire fell, and all the desert bone-eating spiders within the sight range were GG. Even if the desert bone-eating spiders were dead, the flames still did not go out, so those desert bone-eating spiders that wanted to chase them did not dare to get close at all. Kuma looked at the burning flames on both sides, stunned for a moment, slowed down slightly, and then muttered, "Is this really a high-level fire magic? Deputy Captain, where did you find these monsters?" The head of the regiment asked in shock. "Maybe we are lucky," Kuma said. Speaking of which, if it weren't for Tang Mao and his fierce pioneers, who knows how many people they would have lost along the way. Chapter 661 Tang Mao, you are too weak. With Tang Mao leading the way, everyone passed through the rock passage safely. In front of the Melan mercenary group was a narrow long crack, which could only allow 2 or 3 people to walk side by side, and the space for the team to move became very narrow. The 2 walls of the long crack were very high. Looking up, they found that the desert bone-eating spiders had already been lying on the rock wall, waiting for them to fall into the trap, as if they were lined up. Hiss. The desert bone-eating spiders swooped down frantically, and the creepy spiders rained down. This was no longer a problem of smooth passage with someone opening the way. As long as the mage entered this long crack, he would be attacked. Tang Mao looked behind him, and then looked at Apis and said, "Protect Lingling." In their team, only Lingling was a weak chicken who was powerless. As for the others, they all had the ability to protect themselves. As for the Melan mercenary group further behind, they could only leave it to fate. After all, with so many people, it is not realistic for Tang Mao to keep attacking here. After all, there is still a long way to go. Did you hear that, little thing? Without my protection, you may be the shit in the stomachs of these spiders. Although Apis always likes to quarrel with Lingling, she still pulls her to her side at this time. You are a little thing, who cares about your protection? Lingling was immediately dissatisfied when she heard Apis call her. But Apis did not quarrel with her, and pulled her to follow Tang Mao's pace in front. Just because of the suppression power from Apis's bloodline, these spiders had no intention of attacking them. As for Ai Jiangtu and others, it was no problem to deal with this little trouble. The most important thing is that Tang Mao is not far in front of them. Even if they are hidden in the stone wall, it is impossible for him to come out to block the road just after he passed. The flames of destruction are almost continuous. Although these desert bone-eating spiders are hunting crazily, they also choose to temporarily avoid the edge in the face of the killing gods in front. As Tang Mao and his team moved forward, the people of the Melan mercenary corps also rushed in. But it was obvious that in this disadvantageous terrain, they did not have the strength of the people in the government team. Even if they were elites, they were just ordinary elites among the hunters of the same level. To deal with the current situation, casualties are naturally indispensable. Don't just stare at the top, be careful of the stone cracks on both sides. The captain of the 5th squad reminded loudly. Although Tang Mao did not encounter many obstacles along the way, the places where they were hidden were all burned out by Tang Mao with flames. The cave entrance was revealed, and it was no longer a hidden danger. For the Malin Corps, casualties would naturally be reduced. After all, there were so many of them, and they were commanded by their respective captains. Although there were casualties, they were not many. The journey was relatively smooth, and their 9th squad was about to reach the end of Pingu. But at the same time, screams came from behind them one after another, and Gavin, the head of the regiment, roared angrily, "How did you, the 9th squad, clear the way? There are so many desert bone-eating spiders along the way. Underground. There are also underground." At this time, someone suddenly shouted, "What's going on? We clearly walked through those places, and they didn't attack us. Why did those mercenaries suffer one by one?" Zhao Manan looked back and said in confusion, "They were clearly clearing the way. Although they couldn't solve all the problems in the wall, they wouldn't have suffered so many casualties if they were prepared. Moreover, those mercenaries also followed the path they had walked, but those desert bone-eating spiders let them pass. Because they are too weak, because we are too strong. The demons are not fools. They also know to take advantage of the weak." The reason why Tang Mao kept a certain distance from them was because his breath made these little spiders panic. If he ran too far, these spiders would immediately emerge from the ground to attack. Even though they knew that there were extremely dangerous spider claws under their feet, the members of the Melan mercenary group still had to bite the bullet and rush forward. Many mercenaries were even more fierce and would rather cut off their legs than be dragged underground by these desert bone-eating spiders. Fortunately, after another round of rushing, the long reverse slope appeared in everyone's sight. The long reverse slope is similar to a wide cliff plank road, rising slowly along the steep cliff wall, and staggered directly with the rift road below. Everyone climbed up the long reverse slope. The desert bone-eating spiders seemed to know their intentions, and had already covered the long reverse slope. The long reverse slope that was erected in the air had countless spiders hanging upside down on the back, and it looked like a string of camel-colored hideous agates from a distance. "They are going to block us under the slope," Captain Tommy said angrily. "We can only kill them." Kuma snorted coldly and was about to take action. "Get out of my way." As soon as these words came out, Kuma and others who were about to kill were stunned. Immediately, they looked back angrily, but when they saw Tang Mao coming over, they were all angry. In fact, the regiment manager wanted to curse. No matter why, Tang Mao and others who opened the way did not do a good job. But his fists were not as hard as others, so even if he was unhappy, he just snorted coldly. "Sir, didn't you say there was a flood of rocks behind us? Why are you trying to stop us from going up now?" Kuma asked in confusion, holding back his displeasure. "We just cleared the way for you. Do you think we didn't do enough?" Tang Mao asked back, after he walked to the front. Kuma paused, not knowing how to continue the conversation. The regiment commander said with a hint of sarcasm, "Sir, you are very powerful, we all know that. But as a vanguard team, you only care about yourselves. Do you really think of us as a group? You are too weak." As soon as Tang Mao finished speaking, a powerful dark force suddenly erupted from his body. The regiment commander, who wanted to say something, was shocked by the oppressive dark energy and shut up. Shadow kill, dark execution ground. When the black energy slowly transformed into constellations, the Black Star Palace emerged in front of everyone. The moment the Star Palace appeared, the dense desert bone-eating spiders that wanted to stop them from moving forward were instantly frozen there, unable to move at all. Chapter 662. Didn't you awaken the new system? After the dark domain was fully unfolded, the dense desert bone-eating spiders were completely shrouded in it. The next moment, black shadows emerged around the desert bone-eating spiders. These black shadows were naturally the Shadow Evil Corps. Of course, there were also many Shadow Evil leaders who appeared from the ground with a bunch of desert bone-eating spiders on their bodies. However, after the Dark Army stood on the ground, the number of desert bone-eating spiders suddenly felt no longer so dense. At the same time, behind Tang Mao, the Shadow Evil Lord also floated out. That's right, it was Tang Mao's shadow, who stood up directly, right behind Tang Mao. Kill. The Shadow Evil Core, which had been hungry and thirsty for a long time, heard Tang Mao's order, and the blade formed by the black energy in their hands directly penetrated the body of the desert bone-eating spider. Puff. Puff. The next moment, the desert bone-eating spiders that had just occupied the road immediately became the nutrients of the Shadow Evil Core. In less than 10 seconds, thousands of desert bone-eating spiders became the food of Shadow Evil. The remaining desert bone-eating spiders were naturally resisting. However, their resistance was almost powerless. Under the bonus of the Dark Domain, the attributes of the Shadow Evil Core in all aspects were multiplied. Moreover, these desert bone-eating spiders were not as strong as the Shadow Evil Core in terms of combat effectiveness, not to mention that they did not have an advantage in numbers. So soon, they wanted to run away. But from the moment the darkness surrounded this place, they lost all their vitality. Even if they wanted to drill back into the ground, they could not do it. In less than a minute, all the desert bone-eating spiders became food. When the darkness in front of them completely dissipated, Kuma, the mercenary group, and several team leaders could no longer describe their shock in words. Even AI Jiangtu and a few others from the government team came over and saw the scene in front of them with dumbfounded eyes. Just now, there were so many desert bone-eating spiders that they didn't know how many there were, but now, except for the thick dark power, there was nothing left. Question mark? What are you still standing there for? Let's go. Are you still going to wait for the flood here? Tang Mao said, looking at the people who were in a daze behind him. Hearing this, Kuma came back to his senses and hurriedly ordered, hurry up. Bang, bang. As the people of the Melon mercenary group went up the mountain, there was a sound of collision in the distance. They stood on a higher ground and looked back at the long cracks, rock corridors, and flat valleys they had walked through before. They thought that the flood would flow along the skeleton of the valley like a river entering a valley. Who knew that the flood was more powerful than expected, just like a powerful lion dragon, rushing into the cracks on the surface, easily destroying the cracks beyond recognition, and even widening the original landform of the rift several times. The flood of rocks was dark brown, and it rushed past like a dragon, shocking and terrifying. Seeing everything under their feet being destroyed, everyone was glad that they arrived at this safe point in advance. Kuma was even more glad that AI Jiangtu had introduced Tang Mao and others. As for the head of the group who had been unhappy before, they had almost no temper at this time. Such a large group of demons, a tribe, or a small tribe, was destroyed in a few minutes. It was obviously the first time they encountered such a terrifying method. Even if they lived a life of licking blood on the tip of a knife, these people knew that some people should not be provoked. In front of absolute strength, experience and inexperience are all P. It was good that Tang Mao could team up with them. However, the shock that this flood of rocks gave to everyone was no less than that given by Tang Mao. Before seeing the flood of rocks, they thought it was just a very common natural disaster, but after seeing its destructive power, they realized how small they were. Even a strong cultivation could not withstand the sweep of this natural disaster. Although the Melon mercenary group was nothing to Tang Mao, they actually didn't suffer much loss overall. Only a dozen people were seriously injured, and the rest were mostly minor injuries. This is still the desert layer, and we have encountered such a big obstacle. When we reach a higher altitude, the dangers and monsters we encounter will be even more difficult to deal with. Guan Yu sighed. The Melon mercenary group is indeed very powerful. If it were some with poorer psychological quality, they might have been dragged and buried alive by these desert bone-eating spiders. Nanju said. Yes, if it were an ordinary mercenary group, they would have been finished. But, Boss Tang, you are really getting more and more perverted. What did you just do? Jiang Yu asked, recalling the dark demon soldiers just now. He was sure that what he just did was definitely not summoning magic. But if it was not summoning magic, he really couldn't figure out what those were. And the creature that appeared behind Tang Mao, the breath it exuded, was not worse than that of Zunu and Yanji. The main thing Jiang Yu didn't understand was, when did Tang Mao have another contract pet? Question mark? Can't one person have two at most? Moreover, his contract pet seemed to be an elemental pet. Dark magic, shadow system. Tang Mao said truthfully. Damn, are you still a brother? Is there such a thing in black magic? Just summon a legion casually? Moreover, why do I feel that the legion you just summoned, those warlord level black demon soldiers, are much stronger than the sword Deadpools you met in Egypt? Jiang Yu said again. That's the increase brought by my shadow system after the super level. Tang Mao said, and summoned the shadow evil lord again. Speaking of which, it can also be regarded as one of my summoned creatures, but he belongs to the soul that is given to me. AI Jiang Tu asked, what is your current cultivation level? Speaking of which, his talent is already very awesome. Now he is already a super level of space system and curse system. Even the national government team, they are almost all super level. There are even some team members who have not broken through the super level. Originally, he thought he must still be the one with the highest cultivation level. But looking at Tang Mao's situation, it seems that he thinks too much. Monsters are monsters after all. This is simply not comparable to humans. However, AI Jiang Tu is still very curious about what Tang Mao's current strength is. 6 element are superclass, the lightning element and the fire element are now superclass second level. That is, the summoning element has not yet reached the super level. Tang Mao responded. Didn't you awaken a new element? Chapter 663 Companion Totem. Nanju remembered that Tang Mao had already mastered these magic systems when he was in high level training, right? Now that he has been in high level training for such a long time, he has not awakened any new systems? Question mark? As Nanju said this, Mu Ningsu, Jiang Shaoxu, Mo Fan, Zhao Manan and other people who often adventured with him suddenly realized that Tang Mao seemed to have been in high level training for a long time, but he did not awaken any new magic systems. You know, according to his situation, he would have to awaken at least 2 or 3 new systems. In that case, Tang Mao's combat power would definitely be greatly improved. AI Jiang Tu and the others also looked over curiously. Of course, they were all a little envious. Even Mo Fan, who was born with 2 systems and had one more system than others, was extremely envious. Tang Mao is not a 2-system person, he is a 3-system person. Seeing that they all looked over, Tang Mao shrugged and said, do you think I don't want to awaken a new magic system? Of course that's impossible. How could I not know how helpful the emergence of a new magic system would be to me? However, due to my physical condition, I can only wait. What are you talking about? Mu Ningsu asked puzzled. The Magic Association will never have any record of my awakening magic, because my magic is all awakened by myself. However, this thing is also a kind of pros and cons. It's nice to save money in the early stage, but after the awakening of the super level, all magic systems must reach the super level before I can awaken to a new magic system. Moreover, I have tried to use the awakening stone before, but I found that it is impossible to awaken. At this time, he has nothing to hide. There is no need to be low-key. After all, the strength is here. Moreover, Tang Mao had indeed tried to awaken magic with the awakening stone, but the result was a failure. He thought it was too expensive before, and now he couldn't complete the awakening at all. This is the first time I've heard of such a thing. Nanju was stunned. The others nodded as well. Maybe it's because I have a totem vessel soul on me, Tang Mao said again. Apart from the reason of the killing, he really couldn't think of anything else. Then your companion totem is a totem sacred beast? Jiang Shaoxu asked again. Well, otherwise, how could the black snakes listen to me? Tang Mao nodded. Then what is it? Jiang Shaoxu was very interested in the totem. It was not known whether it was because her brother had told her too much or because her family liked this thing. Nanju was also very interested. Looking at Tang Mao, the other few people were naturally the same. They were no longer at the age where they knew nothing. They also had a certain understanding of the totem beast. The one on me is one of the oldest totem sacred beasts, the Killin. Tang Mao said again. As for the idea of the totem master, it was just something she made up. After all, the 4 sacred beast totems have only existed for thousands of years, and as for those that existed even longer, no one knows what they are. Of course, they may have all died, or there may be many totems that are still alive. It's just that they are either sleeping or sealed in certain places. I have heard of the totem beasts Azure Dragon, Vermilion Bird, White Tiger, and Black Tortoise, but I have never heard of the killer you mentioned. Lingling also spoke at this time, because after looking up the deeds of the totems later, she also studied a lot. For example, the totems used to be tribes of each other, such as the demon ancestor on the huge Kunlun mountain, which is said to be from the same lineage of totems. Of course, it can also be said that the other party may be a totem beast. In fact, I didn't know it very well at the beginning. I got a feather that your brother found in Mingsu Academy, which activated the totem on my body, and then I knew these things. Tang Mao looked at Jiang Shaoxu and said, Mingsu Academy? My brother? Jiang Shaoxu obviously didn't know about this. Well, maybe he also realized that the feather was not simple, so he left it in Mingsu Academy, and finally I got it from Dean Zhao. Tang Mao told everything he knew about totems over the years. Of course, there was nothing he couldn't say. After all, he couldn't find more totems by himself. It was not difficult for him to find the living ones. But it was not easy to find the totem beasts that were dead or sealed. As they were studying the totems here, Kuma had asked people to treat the wounds of the wounded, and the flood of stones was slowly coming to an end. Then she came over and looked at everyone and said, the flood of stones has stopped. Have you guys recovered? If you have, we can continue to set off. Kuma no longer treated Tang Mao and his team as rookies. After all, these young people are really too strong. Tang Mao didn't say anything. The strength of the others was not comparable to his. Even Lingling, who hadn't awakened her magic, impressed her. After all, if Lingling hadn't reminded them before, they would have suffered more casualties if they had waited for the spiders to attack. Although Apis's magic aura was not strong, Kuma always felt that she was not simple. The mercenaries had strong psychological qualities, and they were used to the death of people during the mission. They didn't have the heart to mourn the dead, but began to reflect on themselves and re-examine Xianshan. If more than a dozen people died in the desert layer, there would be few living people left in the whole team before the glacier snow layer. The only benefit of the flood was that the Malin mercenary group could clearly know the route to continue. The flood came from the upper layer, so it would be right to follow the debris of the flood. After waiting for about half a day, the flood turned into ordinary sand and rock. Although it changed many landforms of the desert Rift Valley along the way, the Rift Valley was still the Rift Valley. It would not be blocked by the impact of the flood, nor would it be filled up and disappeared because of the flood. Although the combat effectiveness of the Melan mercenary group was not very strong, there was nothing wrong with the route they led to the Xianshan Scar. After the flood, the entire desert Rift Valley became silent. Some corpses buried in the surface could be seen along the way. Obviously, the creatures living here sometimes could not avoid such sudden disasters. From this, it can be seen that nature is not just targeting humans. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelos. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 664. Be prepared to face everything. After walking for a while, the mercenaries who were leading the way in front also found a lot of corpses. But in a place like Xianshan, there is nothing to be surprised about. I think these people either died under the impact of the flood, or were killed by some demons. They were hit by the flood before they were eaten. In the eyes of mercenaries, corpses are no longer scary things. There are corpses on the road to the treasure. In many cases, corpses can indicate the surrounding conditions. If the corpse is fragmented, it means there are ferocious demons and beasts. If the corpse is only left with bones, it means there may be a group of famine predators. If it is safe and well preserved, there is a high possibility of poisoning, or there are other factors. These can become early warning signals for those who come later. When Tang Mao and others came over, Lingling immediately put on gloves and a mask, and went to the side of the corpses for inspection. I say, are you disgusting? Apis said with disgust, when she saw Lingling checking a dead person. What do you know? In a place like Xianshan, it's not just demons and natural disasters that can kill people. Ling Ling retorted. Did you find anything? Nanju came over curiously and asked. From what happened before, Nanju also discovered the power of this little Lalita. So when she saw her coming to check the body, she immediately came over. It's a bit strange. Ling Ling pointed to their clothes and said to Nanju, from their clothes, they have reached the meadow layer. The moss and shady grass in the meadow layer are still hanging on their clothes. Since they walked out of the desert layer and reached a higher altitude canyon, why did they run back here and die? Nanju was also very puzzled. What was the cause of their death? Fan asked. Because Ling Ling stopped here to check the body, and Apis, who was responsible for protecting her, stopped, and Nanju also stopped, so the others also returned. The cause of death was suffocation, but I can't find what caused the suffocation. Ling Ling said. Poisoned? Fan asked again. I thought so at first, but if it was poison, they should stay in the meadow layer. Anyone with a little common sense should know that, if they were poisoned, they should look for an antidote nearby. Ling Ling immediately rejected Fan's idea. Fan is a first class. It seems to be true. If they were poisoned, they would naturally look for an antidote nearby. How could they run here? Could it be that they were poisoned in the meadow layer and then washed down by the flood? Zhao Manan asked a very stupid question. There are no traces of being hit by the flood. I'll leave a sample and continue to move forward. We may need to combine the subsequent environmental factors to find the correct cause of their death. Sure enough, Ling Ling said with a look of disgust. Being despised by the little lolly, Zhao Manan was also helpless. But, with such a high IQ, what can he do? He was also helpless. Is it because they are relatively weak? Jiang Yu asked. There are no traces of fighting on their bodies, which shows that their death has nothing to do with strength. Nanayu responded. The team is already ahead, let's catch up. Even if something happens, there are still the Melon mercenaries to hold them off. AI Jiang Tu said. Old AI, you're right. Are you going to use them as cannon fodder? Zhao Manan immediately understood this. You're the only one who talks too much. The Xianshan Mountains are divided into glacial deposits, alpine zero temperature layers, meadow layers, and desert layers from the highest altitude downward. The Xianshan Great Rift Valley winds upward, so if they walk out of the desert layer, it means they have reached the meadow layer, which means they are closer to the glacial deposits and the location of the scar of the sky. Following the warm route of the flood, the people of the Melon mercenaries also successfully walked out of the desert layer and began to enter the meadow layer with moss and cold grass. The Great Rift Valley in the meadow layer was initially covered with some vegetation that was obviously grown in low-lying areas. However, as they continued to walk deeper, they found that even the cliffs above and on both sides were covered with plants. Some large-leafed climbing grasses were as dense as a wall. If they hadn't approached them, they would have thought they had walked into a dead end. The demons that blocked the road in the desert layer were naturally not just a group of desert bone-eating spiders. It was just that this group was not very strong, but the Yin people were quite powerful. As for other demon groups, although there were many of them, the combat effectiveness of the Melon mercenary group was intact in the face of such an open danger. After walking for a while, they saw a man who seemed to be sick on the road, who was left aside and no one cared about him. After seeing this scene, Muningsu wanted to go over, but she was stopped by Tang Mao. She looked back with some confusion, obviously not understanding what Tang Mao meant. Although it's a bit cold-blooded, it's better not to get involved in irrelevant matters. This is Xianshan, a dangerous place. Since the mercenaries themselves don't care, why do you care? This place is full of dangers, even if they are all strong. But bringing an unknown burden with them will obviously delay things. So Tang Mao stopped Muningsu from going to rescue him. Muningsu said, maybe he's fine, just sick. Do you believe it yourself? Tang Mao asked again. Boss Tang, are we really going to sit back and do nothing? Fan also asked. Look ahead, he is not the only one who was abandoned. If he could be saved, why would the deputy leader of the mercenary group be so ruthless? Tang Mao pointed to the front and continued. Also, can't you see that they all seem to have the same symptoms? There are people in almost every team. We don't have anything to do here right now, but if they are added, it will be hard to say. It's not easy to be a good person these days, because your charity and mercy to a stranger may very likely result in the suffering of our entire team. He himself didn't have any problems. After all, his body was already very good, and with the protection of the demon bloodline, there would be no problems at all. But it's different for a weakling like Lingling. Without waiting for them to say anything, Tang Mao continued, also, anyone who comes here to search for treasure should be prepared to face everything, including death. Chapter 665 Meadow Layer. The commission is very high. The mercenary group also has their own rules. Even if you die on the way, your commission will be paid. Before executing the mission, the mercenary who signs must write the name of a family member. After the mission is successfully completed, the leader of the Huaya mercenary group will send the money that the deceased deserves to the relatives. The mercenary group is ruthless, cold-blooded, and selfish, but the issue of money must be clear. No one can take it away. Because of this rule, it is not common for mercenaries to kill each other. But if that's the case, it's really too cold-blooded, AI Jiang said, looking at the person who was left behind, a little entangled. Zhao Manan said at this time, but if we take these patients with us, our next journey will not be easy. Moreover, there are only a few now, and no one knows whether there will be more when we reach the end of the road. The entire mercenary group, more than 100 people, is not difficult to take these people. But the deputy leader chose to give up on them, so they took over one or two. Then what happened next? We are not mercenaries after all. I can't let these people fend for themselves here. Nanju also spoke up at this time. What if one of us also has these symptoms? Although Kuma is a bit ruthless, what if they are not just local reactions, but have symptoms of infection? Moreover, you have to understand one thing, there is still a long way to go, Tang Mao continued. The few people were speechless for a while. If someone in their team had this kind of situation, they would definitely not be abandoned. But if these abandoned mercenaries were taken along, it would be very tricky at that time. Let's go. Keep moving forward. After saying that, Tang Mao walked forward. Mu Ningxu and the others hesitated for a moment. Although they felt that they couldn't do it, as Tang Mao said, there was still a long way to go. If they were more rational, they really couldn't take these people forward. 3 hours later, the team continued to move forward. It must be said that the oxygen under the Rift Valley is indeed a bit thin. Those plants are negative in nature and do not receive sunlight. Plants without sunlight cannot purify the air. Everyone feels a sense of dullness and difficulty breathing. Huff, 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 huff. On the way forward, Guan Yu made a few sounds of his nose being stuck. After his breathing began to get heavier, Jiang Shaoxu kept observing him and gradually found that Guan Yu's face began to turn pale. Jiang Shaoxu immediately asked, Guan Yu, do you have a cold? I don't know, I suddenly had a lot of snot. Guan Yu found that his nose was blocked, so he breathed through his mouth. You are not going to have their reaction, are you? Jiang Shaoxu said again. I'm a little out of breath, so tired, so hard to breathe. Guan Yu's steps were a little shaky, and he sat down on the stone moss next to him, and then his chest rose and fell sharply. I'm not feeling well either. AI Jiang said. Me too. Lingling said weakly. Nanju saw the three people and immediately thought of something. They may have won the prize here. Tang Mao said without waiting for Nanju to speak. Hearing this, AI Jiang and Lingling were fine, but Guan Yu looked at Tang Mao nervously. Will you abandon me? Although you are not very pleasing to the eye, after all, we have experienced it together. Don't worry, I won't leave you here to fend for yourself. Tang Mao responded. Guan Yu still remembered the previous things clearly. To be honest, he was not on good terms with Tang Mao, and he was really afraid that he would be left here to fend for himself. It can be said that there was almost no hope. Guan Yu obviously thought too much, although he didn't like to meddle in other people's business. But as a member of the national government, how could he really ignore it? I'll go see what's going on in front of them, Nanju said. Tang Mao summoned a silver armored rhino from the summoning plane and threw AI Jiang to Guan Yu and Lingling on it. We didn't bring those mercenaries with us before, which means that this is not an infectious symptom. I think it should be related to the environment here, right? Jiang Yu came to the side and said to the three people. Tang Mao nodded and continued, "We'll know when Nanju comes back." He actually had a vague memory, as if he needed to find something to treat them. However, it was true that he had come to Xianshan several times, but he had never encountered such a similar situation. He had long ignored this. At this time, Nanju also came back, and it seemed that the number of patients in the mercenary group had increased by 20 to 30. This time Kuma did not choose to give up on them. After all, she would need these mercenaries on the road later. Then, the doctor in the mercenary group gave a plant name of mountain frost lotus, which was said to be able to solve difficult and complicated diseases. Moreover, the mercenary group had also done their homework, and then a person who was familiar with this plant took everyone to look for it. With Tang Mao's explosive combat power, it was naturally not difficult to find these plants, and after returning, most of the mercenaries were restored to their original state. It was at this time that Tang Mao remembered that this thing didn't seem to be so easy to save people. After adding some clues given by Lingling, he found the real way to save people. When Ai Jiangtu, Lingling and Guanai recovered, many people in the mercenary group died. Fortunately, he told Kuma in time, and saved many people. But even so, the mercenary group lost more than 20 people in total, including the previous casualties and those who were abandoned. After the crisis of illness passed, everyone continued to move forward. There are more monsters in this meadow layer, and the types are even more bizarre. In addition to being careful of those monsters, you must also be extra careful of those plant creatures. Plant creatures are not common and the most difficult to guard against. Once you encounter a fierce creature, it will really eat people without spitting out bones. Fortunately, the mountain frost lotus taught the Melan mercenary group a lesson. When everyone sees any bright treasures on the road in the future, they will unconsciously become vigilant. This vigilance saved the lives of many mercenaries. People die for money and birds die for food. There are indeed many rare and hard to find treasures along the way. In an ecosystem like Xianshan, any natural treasure is accompanied by danger. Either it has its own deadly rules or there are some monsters nearby. The people of the Melan mercenary group were very careful and barely survived, but other hunter groups, mercenary groups and mage organizations were not so lucky. Chapter 666, Kill If You Say So. However, with Lingling, the little think tank who spent a lot of money, what can be taken and what cannot be taken, the gains and income, all made Tang Mao and his party reaped a lot of benefits. Of course, not only them, but also the mercenary groups leading the way received some benefits. Carefully panning for gold along the way, everyone unknowingly passed the meadow layer. The harvest here is quite rich, but it is just small money after all. The real treasure of Xianshan is hidden in the alpine layer and the glacier layer. It is a pure land without any destruction or picking. When the mercenaries think of making a lot of money just in the meadow layer, they are more looking forward to the higher places in Xianshan. When they arrived at the alpine layer, the vegetation became obviously scarce, and most of them were steep and severe alpine rocks. Due to the greater altitude difference here, many sections walking in this great rift valley seemed to be deep under the dark cliffs. After arriving here, the mercenary group's personnel responsible for exploring the way were almost delivered, and Guanai finally found the time to show himself. Under his guidance, everyone did not encounter any obstacles. Even if they encountered demons, they were only some weaker ones. Before the demons could attack, they were easily solved by rounds of bombing. As for the overlord here, the Xianshan demon tiger, after Tang Mao called Zhao Hei out, he had no intention of showing himself. They moved forward safely all the way, and they also met a very famous man, the hunting king Yazan. The reason he stopped here was because there were beasts on the road ahead. However, the real reason was not these beasts, but the feathered demons of the extremely cold ancient eagle clan who use these beasts as food. After seeing such a horrible scene, some small magician groups chose to go down the mountain one after another. They didn't want to joke with their lives. They kept losing people along the way, and they were tortured in their hearts. They finally got here, and thought that the future was bright. Who knew it was such a hell hunting scene? They would rather be conservative and search for something in the high mountain layer or meadow layer to take back. The people who left should account for 1/3 of the total number of teams. At this time, all the groups were ready to set off. The entire frozen Xianshan lake was filled with a cold smell of blood. The blood even condensed into red ice mist, floating above the lake. Hunter King Yazan glanced at the people of the Malin mercenary group, and his eyes inadvertently fell on the group of people in the 9th squad. He had noticed it before, so he smiled and asked, "When did your Malin mercenary group incorporate the Huaksha Guofu team?" Huaksha Guofu team. Kuma turned around and looked at them. She actually only knew that Ai Jiangtu was a member of the Guofu team, and she really didn't know the rest. But when she thought of the strength of this group of young people, Kuma suddenly felt that there was nothing wrong. After all, if any Chinese youth was so powerful, wouldn't China have unified the world long ago? So they are a group of proud children. They have the guts to come to Xianshan. It seems that they are quite capable of winning the first place in the world's major universities. Zhao Kang of the Nio mercenary group couldn't help laughing, with a playful tone. Then we have to take care of them later. After all, we are all seniors. We can't let a group of college students with such a high reputation die under the gathering of our magician group. If it gets out, it will be difficult for us to survive in the international arena. Ha ha ha. Botan of the New York Temple Expedition team said. Several team leaders talked about this matter, and the team members also looked here, but their eyes were not necessarily very friendly. We have been recognized, Guan Yu said. There may be something wrong with their eyes. Jiang Shaoxu also said. Wandering around in various countries over the years, I found that people don't take the competition of world universities seriously. Mo Fan shrugged. A bunch of idiots are just envious. Tang Mao also spoke at this time. His voice was not deliberately lowered like the others. Those who were not very friendly to begin with also looked even more unfriendly. Of course, the people of the Melan mercenary group did not mean to beep at all. After all, the strength that Tang Mao had shown before was too memorable for them. Although this hunting King Yazan was very famous and powerful, in Kuma's opinion, even he might not be Tang Mao's opponent. After all, just a summoning system is enough to give these people a headache, right? Boy, are you very arrogant? Don't you think that you are qualified to challenge the seniors just because you have won the first place in the government? Zhao Kang of the Nio mercenary group looked at Tang Mao and said, "Senior?" Tang Mao looked at him with interest, and the next moment, he appeared in front of him, and then a powerful space force directly lifted him up. Zhao Kang was not weak, but at this time, he was like a little chicken, and was locked there by Tang Mao without any resistance. When his people saw this, they wanted to take action, but the dark power suddenly wrapped them up, and even at that moment, they didn't even have the opportunity to take action. At this time, Tang Mao looked at the person in front of him and said coldly, "You are like an ant in my hand. Do you deserve it?" The New York Temple Expedition team originally wanted to say something, but after seeing this scene, they shut up instantly. Even the Hunter King was a little shocked. How long has it been since the national government competition? The new national government competition hasn't started yet, right? You know, when they were in the national government competition, they were just high-level mages. But Tang Mao just appeared in front of Zhao Kang, and he almost didn't react. "Do you want to die?" Zhao Kang wanted to speak, but he couldn't make any sound at all. However, he still gritted his teeth, and said these words. "Behead." After hearing what the other party said, Tang Mao uttered a word lightly. The next moment, the Lord of Shadow Evil emerged, and at the same time, the Shadow Evil commander also appeared near Zhao Kang's men. The dark power almost directly submerged them all. From beginning to end, they had no room for resistance. Hunter King Yazan wanted to dissuade him, but who knew that Tang Mao had such a bad temper? Kill as soon as he said it? Question mark? After all, he was hired by the Zhao family in China. Everyone in the Melan mercenary group was also a little dumbfounded. However, the people on the government side, especially Zhao Manian, were relatively clear about why Tang Mao killed Zhao Kang, because of a few words. There was no other reason, just because he was a subordinate of Zhao Manian's beastly brother, so Tang Mao just killed him. Chapter 667 Parting Ways. Zhao Manian understood this, and other members of the government naturally understood this as well. But should I say it or not, Tang Mao was a bit impulsive. And the reason he found for this matter was a bit insufficient, right? Question mark? Tang Mao, just because of what he said, you killed him? AI Jiangtu and others knew about it, but the hunting king Yazan didn't. He looked at him and said, "Young man, your strength is indeed very strong. Even I can't compare to you. But do you know that he was hired by the Zhao family's trustee in your country? I think you should still consider charging towards Xianshan. I killed him, not just because he was rude, but also for personal reasons." After the dark energy swallowed them, Tang Mao's murderous aura instantly dissipated. The short-lived alliance had just been established. Who would have thought that a team would be so cold? Although everyone came to risk their lives to find treasures, they did not die in the hands of demons, but were killed by people in the team. They all had some other ideas. No matter what your reason is, we just formed an alliance, and you attacked your own people. So I'm sorry, I can't keep you here. Hunting King Yazan looked at Tang Mao and said, "In that case, you guys charge ahead. We will find our own way up." After saying that, Tang Mao turned around and walked towards AI Jiangtu and the others. AI Jiangtu looked at Nanju, and after Nanju nodded, they followed Tang Mao and left. As for the hunting King Yazan, he led the rest of the people and began to charge towards the snow layer of the mountain glacier. After just a few steps, Tang Mao stopped. Seeing Tang Mao stop, several people were a little puzzled. At this time, shouldn't they return the same way? Although the treasures on it are very tempting, without a large army, it would be difficult for them to rush up. "Boss Tang, you don't have to do this," Zhao Manan said at this time. "Killing him is just a convenience, and I don't really want to drag you back the same way," Tang Mao said, and took a few people back to the previous position. "You don't want us to rush up now, do you?" AI Jiangtu asked. No, don't worry." Tang Mao shook his head. Others were a little puzzled, not understanding what Tang Mao meant. Bang! Just when they were making good progress, the monarch-level ancient frost eagle appeared. Then, with a loud bang, a big hole suddenly appeared on the frozen lake in front of them. The lake water with a bit of heat splashed into the air, but after a few seconds of contact with the outside air, it condensed into ice beads, and then fell crisply on the ice lake's surface. At the hole, a white maggot demon drilled out. Part of its body was still under the ice lake, and its head with a big cave mouth was exposed outside. Its body was maggot-shaped, but its skin was stacked layer by layer. As the hunting King Yazan and others approached the center of the Xianqi, the white maggot demon suddenly opened its esophagus to devour. How many monsters have been fattened in this Xianqian pond? What the hell is this? Zhao Manan asked in shock. It's the ancient insect king of Xianqian. It is said that it feeds on the ancient eagle of extreme cold and the magic tiger of Xianshan. But it's obvious that this guy wants to change his taste. Most demons are more interested in humans. Nanju said. Rumble, 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 rumble. At this moment, a large vibration on the multi-layered ridge forced AI Jiangtu and others to look over there. Damn, these beasts actually have such cunning IQ? Zhao Manan said with a little shock. I suddenly feel fortunate that we didn't rush up with them. Jiang, you didn't want to go up anymore. Even they might not be able to withstand such an impact, right? Yeah, I think so too. How about we retreat? Why retreat? If we don't rush to the glacier layer, can we still be considered to have come to Xianshan? Tang Mao said with a little disdain. You're not still thinking about rushing up, are you? Just relying on a few of us? Although Guan Yu was not the kind of person who was afraid of death, the scene in front of him was really a bit shocking. To be honest, he no longer had the courage to go on. The impact of the beast tide caused heavy losses to the mages of several mercenary groups. There was no way. The beast tide, which was originally food, was not taken seriously by the ancient eagles of extreme cold. Instead, it brought great trouble to the mercenaries. Since Ao Kang and his group were killed by Tang Mao, there were not many mercenaries who could fight. Seeing the people of the mercenary group die one after another, and the beast tide also rushed down, only the ancient eagle of extreme cold was still entangled with them. After that, Tang Mao hugged Ling Ling in his arms and said, follow me, I will open the way. Tang Mao, you are not really thinking that a few of us will rush up, right? Nanju also felt that this was a bit hasty. They can still deal with the creatures on land together. But there are not many people who can fight these powerful feather monsters. You only need to be responsible for not being caught by those miscellaneous birds, and the problem of opening the way will be left to me. After Tang Mao finished speaking, he charged directly upwards. Several people did not have much time to hesitate, since someone had already cleared the way. Moreover, they had not even set foot on the Xianshan glacier layer, so how could they have been to Xianshan? In the mercenary group of the Alliance, everyone naturally noticed the charge of Tang Mao and others. However, no one had any idea. After all, because of their appearance, many ancient eagles of extreme cold flew towards them. This reduced a lot of pressure on them. Everyone, take advantage of this moment and rush up. After seeing the opportunity, the hunting king Yazan shouted. As for the result of the Guofu team, who cares? It's not good. We attracted half of the ancient eagles of extreme cold. They are much more relaxed. If they rush up, we will completely become prey. Nanju looked at the flying ancient eagles and said with a slightly trembling voice, if this situation becomes like that, it will not be any good for them. Skyflame funeral. Tang Mao, who was rushing in the front, suddenly jumped up, and then the constellation was almost formed in seconds. Originally, in such a cold and gloomy place, the power of the fire system would be suppressed, but Tang Mao's flames were still extremely hot. The rain of fire fell from the sky. Although the flying ancient eagles of extreme cold also avoided it, when the rain of fire landed near them, it suddenly exploded. In an instant, hundreds of ancient eagles of extreme cold were ignited by the rain of fire, and their huge bodies fell on the mountain. Nanju, who was still worried just now, saw this scene, and twitched his mouth slightly and said, it seems that he didn't fuse with Yanji. Chapter 668, Fire Element becomes more powerful. When dealing with the desert bone-eating spiders before, Nanju actually noticed something was wrong. But she didn't pay too much attention to it at that time. After all, there were so many desert bone-eating spiders at that time, and she didn't have time to pay attention to Tang Mao's flame. However, this time, because they didn't need to clear the way, Nanju could see it clearly. This doesn't seem to be the flame after Yanji merged, right? In other words, Tang Mao's own flame power has reached such a terrifying level now. Now that you mention it, I just remembered that he has a contract pet that can be merged. My god. Boss Tang's magic is so wrong that the textbook feels wrong, right? Jiang, you heard what Nanju said and realized what he had felt before. He always felt that something was wrong along the way, but he couldn't figure it out. But now he understood. I always feel that his fire system seems to be much stronger than before. Jiang Xiaoxu heard what they said and immediately found something wrong. The ancient eagles that were besieging the team of King Hunting Yazan discovered the humans who rushed over later. After hearing the fierce firepower, they raised their heads and cried out loudly. Not far from here was their demon nest. After hearing the shouts, a dense group of ancient eagles appeared in the sky. King Hunting Yazan was also stunned when he saw so many ancient eagles appearing again. He turned around and found that it was Tang Mao who took off. Exclamation mark. He was simply looking for death. Taking off in the territory of the feather demon was simply a provocation to the dignity of the other party. However, it was precisely because he attracted a lot of firepower that gave their improvised team a chance to rush up. Looking at the large group of ancient eagles rushing over, AI Jiang Tu hurriedly said, oh no, those ancient eagles are coming towards us. Damn, those mercenaries actually rushed up without caring about us. Jiang Yu said with a curse. Boss Tang, can you hold on? Zhao Manan looked at Tang Mao and asked. To be honest, there are many command level beings among the group of ancient eagles rushing over, and there are thousands of them right now. This is their lair, so I wonder how many there are. Question mark? If Tang Mao says that he can't stand it, Zhao Manan will turn around and run without saying a word. There is no beast group now. Even if Tang Mao can't deal with this group of feather monsters, they still have a chance to escape, and it is enough for him to block everything. Keep going, they are coming for me. Tang Mao had no intention of retreating at all. Not only that, but he continued to rise to the sky. The sky is the territory of feather monsters? What a ridiculous sentence. The gate of the fire prison. Looking at the group of ancient eagles rushing over with great momentum, there are many command level ancient eagles among them, but after the connection with the Firestar Palace was successful, 4 gates of the fire prison appeared in the air. Puff puff puff. Puff puff puff. The next moment, 4 waves of destructive fire sprayed out from the gate together. The fire wave almost covered the sky. This place was already extremely cold, but under the baptism of the fire wave, everyone felt the burning sensation. The snow layer that had accumulated for a long time actually felt like it was melting under the fire wave. As for the ancient eagles that rushed over, at the moment they were hit by the fire wave, even their bones were immediately melted into slag. Whether they were generals or commanders, the flames not only melted the group of ancient eagles in the front, but also spread. The ancient eagles that followed in the back were also immediately ignited. Seeing that the flames were so strange, they scattered in all directions. Sand and dust tornado. But how could Tang Mao do as they wished? The wind was blowing everywhere, and the ancient eagles that had been hiding were suddenly blown into the sea of fire by the wind. The fire was powered by the wind, and its power was several times stronger than before. On the side of the government team, because Tang Mao attracted most of the hatred, they easily rushed up the hillside. Although the snow had already begun to melt, Muningsu still spread her ice domain after coming up to prevent an avalanche. She was afraid of suppressing Tang Mao with her domain, so she controlled her power, but she didn't expect that her ice domain would be dissolved in an instant after it had just spread! Exclamation mark. Quick, all you ice type people, help me freeze this place. Muningsu immediately turned around and looked at the others and said, "What's wrong? If the snow here melts, it will easily cause an avalanche," Muningsu said hurriedly. As Muningsu spoke, everyone noticed that due to the spread of Tang Mao's fire domain, the snow in this area had actually begun to melt. Tang Mao naturally noticed this, but if he dispersed the fire domain now, the remaining strange birds would definitely be a problem. After all, it was not an easy task to circle so many. In addition, the glacier above was still like 1,000-year-old ice, with no intention of melting at all. Not only did he not disperse the fire domain, but he also rained fire again. There were 4,000 or 5,000 ancient eagles in the extreme cold, and 3/4 of them were lost in such a short moment. The remaining ones who survived by chance turned around and flew back to their nest. As for the monarch on the ground, he had no intention of dealing with him, and similarly, he had no intention of causing trouble for it. Perhaps it was not difficult to deal with it, but this was just the entrance to the Xianshan Scar. It was obviously not wise to waste magic energy fighting here. The fire area slowly dissipated, and the snow began to melt and fall continuously. Fortunately, Muningsu's ice magic was not weak, and it continued to freeze this place. "Don't waste magic energy, leave here," Tang Mao said after arriving here. "If there is an avalanche, those who leave before will be in danger." Muningsu hesitated. There were many mercenaries who did not advance to the Xianshan Scar before. They were afraid of this place and wanted to return. This unknown natural disaster was absolutely fatal to them. After all, those who left were naturally not very strong. Although Tang Mao could sit back and watch the abandoned people, it was indeed a bit unreasonable that many people died here because of his relationship. He had no choice but to merge with the snow girl and help Muningsu freeze the ice here. The snow had been there for a long time, and although it had been a little frozen before, with the combined efforts of Tang Mao, Muningsu and the snow girl, the snow froze again. Chapter 669. The appearance of the Xianshan Scar. Winter is coming to Xianshan soon, so after they arrived here safely, they continued on their way. After all, if they didn't get out before the heavy snow closed the mountain, it would be hard to know when they could get out of the trace of Xianshan again, and it would even be a question whether they could get out. Having experienced the silence of Xianshan once, Tang Mao obviously didn't want to experience it a second time. "Should we follow them?" Nanju looked at Tang Mao and asked. After all, they had been separated from Yazan and the others because of Tang Mao's attack, but when they just rushed up, I believe they also saw Tang Mao's strength. So even if they formed a team, it would still be okay for them who suffered heavy casualties. Why follow them? I'll take you for a stroll, and you will definitely gain much more than following them. Tang Mao said confidently. A place like the Trace of Xianshan is not something you can set foot on just by being strong. If we get lost, we'll be finished, Jiang Yu said. To be honest, he was a little nervous when he asked Tang Mao to lead the way. Not to mention Jiang Yu and Zhao Manayan, who cherished their lives. Even AI Jiang Tu and the others felt that something was wrong. Tang Mao shrugged and said, "Come with me. I will show you the real Xianshan scar." Several people followed Tang Mao half-believingly and walked in another direction. Of course, Nanchu also left some marks along the way to prevent them from losing their way. Everyone subconsciously thought that the Trace of Xianshan Mountain was a dark, long, deep, and cold underground crack, but it was not. When Tang Mao led them here, the white glacier was like a vast and huge armor covering the undulating mountains, stretching to the endless and distant antenna, the white snow nearby, the blue and white rock ridges at high altitudes, the more distant deep blue mountains, and the wholly blue mountain shadows at the farthest end of the site merged with the blue sky. It looked like a magnificent sculpture full of layered beauty carved by a master with his life's hard work. What shocked them even more was that at different heights in the sky, there were pieces of thin ice clouds floating and moving slowly like gauze. The small thin ice clouds were about the size of a basketball court, and the large thin ice clouds were completely like a piece of ice gauze, covering the grandeur of the highest altitude airspace of Xianshan Mountain. How wide this sky is, how wide it is. I finally understand what rumors mean. The Trace of Xianshan is not what they say. I feel like I have stepped into an ice kingdom. It is in heaven, not underground. Nanju looked at the scenes in front of her and suddenly had an idea. Maybe the Trace of Xianshan is not that scary? This is so beautiful. It turns out that this is the Trace of Xianshan, the real Trace of Xianshan. Jiang Xiaoxu, a woman with a childlike heart, could hardly move her feet after seeing the scenery here. The glacier is upside down, like a waterfall in the clouds. Walking in some areas with dense ice and clouds, you may even feel that the hanging ice layer above your head is the ground, and you are walking in an upside down world. It is very quiet. There are no beasts roaring or strange cries in the Trace of Xianshan. Everything seems to be asleep. Walking in such an ice kingdom, the sound of footsteps is noise, and the words are unconsciously lowered, and the tone is soft. People can get along with each other more friendly. But, how are we going to find sea quartz? Mo Fan said blankly, looking at the white glacier in front of him. I've told you all, wait here, someone will lead the way. Tang Mao sat there, not in a hurry. Brother, don't tell me you can get help here? Zhao Manayan said with some disbelief. You'll know when the time comes. Tang Mao smiled and said, is it reliable? AI Jiang Tu also sat next to Tang Mao, with a hint of doubt. When have I ever been unreliable? Tang Mao asked back. Several girls were feeling the unprecedented Pure Land atmosphere. After hearing Tang Mao's words, they turned back and looked at him at the same time. They said in tacit understanding, you are never reliable. Tang Mao was stunned. It's fine for other girls to say that, but why are you, Apis, a snake, joining in the fun? ? But he didn't refute anything, thinking that Shinan White Tiger had already sensed his breath. After all, he had already set foot near its territory. It's funny to say that, although the Shinan White Tiger is not a serious totem, it is still very spiritual. As long as I set foot on Xianshan and come to the glacier, it will immediately find me and come. I think this is also because of the relationship between the sacred beast White Tiger. Everyone rested here for a whole day, but the guide Tang Mao said did not appear. Instead, in the distance, where Yazan and his group were, bursts of tiger roars and fighting energy bursts were heard. Although the scenery is beautiful, a day was wasted in vain, which made several people feel a little uncomfortable. Boss Tang, you don't really want us to enjoy the scenery here for a few days and then leave, right? Jiang Yu asked Tang Mao, who was sitting there without any hurry. I don't want to just set foot here in Xianshan, at least take us around. AI Jiang Tu also said. Speaking of which, didn't he come to Xianshan just to set foot on the Xianshan mark for an experience? Although they came after arriving here, they didn't mean to move at all. This kind of experience is obviously different from what he imagined. The most important thing is that everyone has not gained much so far, and the income is just a drizzle. This Xianshan trace is a place full of treasures. Don't worry, I think it will be here soon. Before Tang Mao finished speaking, Nanju suddenly said nervously, "No, something is approaching." Everyone looked at her at the same time, and Nanju continued, "The other party's aura is very strong, at least at the level of a great monarch." The few people who were sitting just now stood up one by one in an instant, looking at the direction Nanju was paying attention to with full vigilance. At this time, the snow girl also ran out of the contract space, as if she felt a familiar aura. Roar, just as Ai Jiangtu and the others were on guard, suddenly a handsome creature with a shining white light stood on the tip of an ice peak not far away. Its long white hair fluttered in the whistling cold wind, and it looked at Tang Mao and the others, and let out a series of low roars. Chapter 670 High Bloodline Mount. A white devil tiger, this guy has a very pure bloodline. Looking at the huge monster not far away, Mo Fan took a deep breath and said, "The Xianshan devil tigers that I met in the high mountains before only had some white tiger stripes and marks on their bodies, but this devil tiger is completely snow white. The pure hair all over its body exudes an indescribable majesty and nobility, and its extremely strong body makes it look full of extreme power and wildness. Skyridge white tiger, this guy is probably a true descendant of the holy tiger." Lingling's eyes lit up, as if she had discovered something rare. "Why are you so excited? It doesn't look very friendly." Zhao Manan was ready to release a light shield for defense. "Tang Mao, why are you still lying there?" Nanju turned around and saw Tang Mao still lying there leisurely, so she shouted hurriedly, "This level of white tiger is absolutely extremely powerful. If they are not prepared, even if they can deal with it, they will probably suffer casualties." At this time, the snow girl had floated over. Seeing the snow girl floating over, Jiang Shaoxu hurriedly said, "Don't. Mole girl, don't be so nervous. The other party has no ill intentions." Before Jiang Shaoxu could remind the snow girl, he heard Apis say, "Little demon girl, are you sure it is not aggressive towards us?" Jiang Shaoxu ignored Apis's address and asked back. Apis glanced at Tang Mao behind him, and then said, "I think this should be the one he found to lead the way." Everyone heard this, and looked at Tang Mao at the same time. "I didn't say that the one who found the guide must be a human." Tang Mao stood up and shrugged, and then walked over. Did the snow girl seem to have started chatting with the white tiger of the sky mark? After seeing Tang Mao coming over, it slowly approached, although it was convinced of Tang Mao. But the white tiger of the sky mark was still a little wary of the humans around him. "Do you know it?" Lingling saw that the white tiger of the sky mark had no intention of guarding against Tang Mao, so she hurriedly asked. "Of course, it was it, and Zhao Hei who accompanied me when I first came to Xianshan." Tang Mao called Zhao Hei out. Roar. Xianshan white tiger looked puzzled when he saw Zhao Hei? Question mark? It seemed that he didn't expect that the little brother back then would be so strong now. Moreover, in terms of bloodline, the other party's bloodline is not weaker than his own. Zhao Hei looked at his former big brother and greeted him with a low roar. While the two behemoths were greeting, a baby-like little white tiger ran out from behind it. Ayo how. As soon as it came out, the little guy roared a few times, and then slowly approached Tang Mao. "Oh my god, this little guy is so cute." Jiang Shaoxu was full of maternal love when she saw the mini white tiger. "This little guy has extremely strong energy in his body. It is at least monarch level," Apis said as he looked at the little white tiger. Jiang Shaoxu, who had just thought the little white tiger was cute, froze in an instant when he heard the words. Tang Mao was different. He directly pinched its neck and lifted it up. What it was holding in its mouth was naturally the sea quartz they were looking for. Nanju and Lingling recognized it at the same time and said in shock, "Isn't this sea quartz?" While they were talking, Tang Mao had already taken sea quartz out of its mouth and then threw it to Mo Fan with the little white tiger unwillingly. If they didn't know that the other party was a monarch level creature, they wouldn't think anything of it. But now they know. Not only did Tang Mao snatch it from someone's mouth, but he also pinched the other party like a kitten. It was simply outrageous. Awoo as if its pacifier was taken away. The little white tiger looked at Tang Mao aggrievedly and kept calling. However, it didn't look angry, but it seemed to be acting like a spoiled child. Let's go find some local specialties from your area. I'll take you with me this time. Tang Mao put it on the ground and continued. Although it was the first time to meet the little white tiger, there was a special connection between them. Maybe it was because of the relationship with the killin, or maybe it was because of the explanation given by the white tiger. But no matter what the reason was, the little white tiger left here happily after receiving Tang Mao's instructions. Dabe, take me to the place where we found the snow girl. After sending the little white tiger away, Tang Mao looked at the white tiger Shinan and said, Raw. Hearing what Tang Mao said, the white tiger Shinan lowered his body, and Tang Mao jumped up and sat down without any hesitation. Why are you still in a daze? Don't you want to appreciate this place? After Tang Mao came up, he looked at the stunned guys and said, Can we go up too? Nanju asked in disbelief. This is a white tiger with a very high bloodline. As a mount, this is something that people dare not even dream of. Jiang Shaoxu trusted Tang Mao 100%. As soon as he finished speaking, he ran over. Sure enough, the Shinan white tiger did not seem unhappy, but did not move. It was as if it was not a white tiger with a very high bloodline, but a means of transportation. Seeing this, the others also jumped up one by one. It is a rare opportunity to ride a white tiger with such a high bloodline. Who would not want to feel it? This time, I will have the confidence to brag about it. After everyone came up, Tang Mao held Ling Ling in his arms. As for Zhao Hui, because of his large size and his completely dark attribute structure, he was not very adaptable to this place, so he was taken back. Then Tang Mao said, although it can help us block some strong winds, it still has some damage. You all should be well protected. After several people nodded, the Shinan white tiger began to run wildly. Although the Shinan white tiger is very large, its speed when running wildly is also extremely fast. In just a few minutes, they crossed several mountain ranges. Since it was not winter yet, there was no snow and wine to block them. They moved forward without any obstacles except for some demon territories. Oh my god, this is exciting. So cool. It's so beautiful here. Don't you care whether the wind is strong or not? Zhao Manian, who was in charge of holding the shield, said dissatisfiedly while watching the few people enjoying the excitement and the beautiful scenery. However, no one paid any attention to him. Ling Ling looked at Tang Mao with disdain. How could this man take advantage of her whenever he had the chance? With Zhao Manian blocking in front, what harm could there be? If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelos. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 671. Tang Mao finds a way to greet. But even if Ling Ling is dissatisfied, what can she do? She can't break free, and compared to the warmth outside, Tang Mao is like an electric stove. Warm, but Ling Ling is not Apis after all. Although she is very cute, she is a little convex, and has no sense of operation at all. Where are we going? After crossing the demon realms one by one, Nanju asked, feeling that something was wrong. Take you to see the totems. Tang Mao responded in a light voice. Do you really know where the other totems are here? Nanju paused slightly. Jiang Shaoxu's eyes lit up, looking at Tang Mao and asked, apart from the descendants of the white tiger, are there other totems here? Of course. Tang Mao nodded. What kind of creature is it? Jiang Yu also knows a lot about demons, but he doesn't know about totems. So when he heard Tang Mao say that he was going to find a totem, he was also very interested. The others were naturally the same. For a powerful creature like totem, that is not hostile to humans, who doesn't want to see their style, it is also a holy totem, named Fei Lion. Although it is not as old as the 4 holy beast totems, it is definitely longer than the black snake. Seeing that several people were very interested in this totem, and there seemed to be a long way to go, Tang Mao gave them a brief account. Aren't there only 4 holy totems? Ling Ling raised her head and asked. Although she was unhappy with the damn claws pinching randomly, the story of the totem obviously attracted her more. There are not only 4 holy totems, but what we know is that they live in the explorable areas around us. And those unknown ones may have fallen into a deep sleep, some may have been sealed by humans, and some have hidden in human forbidden areas and are unwilling to show up. Tang Mao's narration was actually partly his own inference. After all, he was not a totem creature, so how could he know so clearly? Bang, 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 bang. Just as he was telling AI Jiangtu and the others about the totem, the thick ice suddenly exploded, and pillars of ice pierced through the Cheyenne white tiger. Roar. As if it had sensed the enemy, the white tiger roared, and the next moment it not only did not dodge, but used its sharp claws to shatter all the ice pillars one by one. The white tiger's movements were too big, and the people on its back fell to the ground. Without Zhao Manan's protection, the others realized how terrifying the cold wind here was. If ordinary people or some mid-level mages were here, they would probably become ice sculptures in a few minutes, right? Bang. After the ice pillars were dissolved by the white tiger, the ice layer that had accumulated over the years suddenly shattered on a large scale. Just the fact that it could shatter the ice that had been there for who knows how many years, the monster here must be extraordinary. Boom. A loud bang was heard, and then pieces of ice and stone about 2 meters long were smashed towards them. Telekinesis. AI Jiangtu rushed to attack when the ice and stone were smashed. Under his control, the dense ice and stone stopped in the air. Compared with the national government competition, his strength was obviously stronger. Moreover, his mental power seemed to have reached level 7. Growth is never just a matter of one person. Although AI Jiangtu's growth was not as great as Tang Mao's, he was definitely one of the top people of his age. Thunder explosion. After AI Jiangtu controlled the pieces of ice and stone, Mo Fan also completed the thunder constellation. Between the flashes of thunder and fire, the ice turned into small pieces and fell. Roar. The two had just solved the ice and stone that was about to fall on them, and suddenly they were stunned by a loud roar. Fortunately, the two of them had strong mental power, so they did not faint from the roar. AI Jiangtu shook his head and looked towards the place where the roar just came from. A dragon-like head emerged from the broken glacier. After the head was completely out, its huge body appeared. Tang Mao thought it was another sub-dragon creature, but when its body was revealed, they were all a little confused. This is a creature with a leopard body and a fishtail. As for its claws, they seem to be tiger claws. Oh my god, what kind of monster is this? Jiang Shaoxu exclaimed as he looked at the huge creature that crawled out. Mo Fan and AI Jiangtu had returned to the white tiger at this moment. Although the thing in front of them did not look good, the strong aura was obviously not something they could handle. Roar. When the two came back, the white tiger roared. I don't know if it was negotiating with the other party or declaring war. As expected of the Xianshan monarch level students, they are really everywhere. Guan Yu sighed. AI Jiangtu, Nanju, Jiangyu and others all nodded in agreement. After all, he was not like Tang Mao and his companions. They were not so desperate to find monarch level creatures. When they stepped into the trace of the heavenly mountains and saw the two monarchs, they already felt the danger here. And now, with the white tiger of the heavenly mountains, there are 2 more monarch level creatures. At this time, the 4 people were also quite fortunate. Fortunately, they met Tang Mao and his companions. Otherwise, this trip to the trace of the heavenly mountains would be a dangerous one. Apart from anything else, the meadow layer alone was enough for them to bear. The forbidden area for humans is indeed just talk. Roar. The creature seemed to have failed to negotiate with the white tiger. Another deafening roar came out, as if to drive them away, as if they would use their claws if they didn't leave. Fortunately, everyone was on the huge body of the white tiger, with its resistance, and the roar that seemed to hit their minds made them reluctantly respond. Ling Ling was completely isolated by Tang Mao's space magic. With such protection, the roar had no effect on her. Apis, you protect Ling Ling. I'll go say hello to this fool. He didn't have the patience to waste time with this kind of person who was blocking his way. After all, this icy and snowy place was not suitable for talking nonsense. Taking a step forward, Tang Mao arrived in the air. With a push of his palm, a powerful destructive thunderbolt burst out. Boom boom boom. The thunderbolt moved as it passed by, shattering a lot of ice layers and directly bombarding the opponent's huge body. The people at the back looked at each other. So saying hello meant a destructive thunderbolt first. Chapter 672 Fairy Lion. Although it was just a casual bombing, the power of the thunder was so strong that even some orthodox commanders could lose half their lives. Although the behemoth in front of him was not seriously injured, it was also forced to retreat a little by the current. Make way or die, your choice. After the thunder ended, Tang Mao said in a calm voice, Monarch level creatures still have some intelligence, and they can naturally understand what humans say. Regardless of whether they can understand or not, there are probably not many people in this world who dare to talk to monarch level creatures like this. After all, the authority of demons cannot be challenged unless you want to fight to the death. However, what the members of the national government behind him did not expect was that this huge 4-in-1 just made a few low roars and then turned around and left. Question mark? It just left like that? Jiang Yu, who knew demons very well, said with a feeling that it was unreal. First there was a thunder, and then a cruel word, and a huge monarch level creature just turned around and left. It's outrageous! Exclamation mark. Anyway, it's good not to have to fight. The opponent's strength is at least at the level of a great monarch, AI Jiang Tu said. And, judging from the situation, it seems that the snow is about to close the mountain. Let's go find the totem as soon as possible. Nanju had also been to Xianshan once. Although he didn't reach the place he came to this time, he still had some understanding of the situation here. Tang Mao also returned at this time and sat on the body of Shinan White Tiger, and everyone continued on their way. He didn't care about what they admired, because he was not surprised at all that he could scare the other party away. The terrifying shadow of the shadow evil plus the domineering breath of the devil, let alone a great monarch, even some primary level supreme monarchs would be afraid. Supreme monarchs are divided into primary supreme monarchs, middle supreme monarchs, high supreme monarchs and invincible monarchs. Of course, this is a completely useless skill to increase momentum, without any lethality. This is also what he studied when he was bored not long ago. Tang Mao did not want to fight with the other party. After all, once a creature of this level gets entangled, it would be a big trouble if it cannot be killed at once. This situation is obviously what he wants most. After leaving here, although there are still many obstacles on the road, due to the strong aura of the Shinan White Tiger, there is almost no resistance. The main reason is that the Shinan White Tiger ran all the way and had no intention of staying in their territory, otherwise it would not be so smooth. After nearly 2 days of running, they finally came under another iceberg. After arriving here, there are almost no demon tribes nearby. What does this mean? Everyone present knows it. This belongs to the territory of a more powerful demon. Perhaps it is just one, or perhaps a tribe or even a tribe. Is this where Fairy Lion lives? Jiang Shaoxu looked around, still a vast expanse of white, but compared to some places where demons were flooded before, this place seemed particularly quiet. Yes, it is here, but originally this was where the snow girl lived. Then came Fairy Lion, but I'm not sure if it is still here. Tang Mao shook his head as he looked at the iceberg. The white tiger of the Skymark has now begun to charge towards the huge iceberg. This mountain is really huge. I didn't pay attention to it several times before. You know, even with the huge body of the white tiger of the Skymark, it took a full half an hour to reach the top of the mountain. Moo. Before they could find each other, a loud noise was heard, and then Fairy Lion stopped in front of the white tiger of the Skymark. Looking at its appearance, it seems to be very fierce. Why do I feel that this totem beast seems to be not very friendly to us? Zhao Manan looked at the Fairy Lion who stopped in front of them and said weakly. He was obviously the one who knew the situation the most. The aura of Fairy Lion was obviously many times stronger than the rare creatures they encountered along the way. Although he was no longer the weak middle level mage, even with his super level cultivation, he still felt that he was not good enough in front of the other party. Jiang Shaoxu looked at Fairy Lion and felt, it seems to be driving us away and doesn't want us to set foot here. What the mole girl said is right, and if we don't leave, the other party seems to be going to attack. Apis also spoke at this time. You guys step back. This time, I didn't think I could take him away peacefully. If you want to attack, then attack. After rubbing his hands together, Tang Mao jumped up directly to the mid-air. After seeing Tang Mao standing there in the air, Jiang Yu said, although I know he is pretending in front of us, just because he doesn't need the wind wings to step in the air, it is enough for me to give him a full score. Doesn't he need our help? Guan Yu also asked. The others looked at each other for a while, but found that the snow girl floated over and directly merged into Tang Mao's body. Just watch, you can't help. Apis saw that several people were ready to move and spoke. Little demon girl, he is not really going to fight a totem beast alone, is he? Jiang Xiaoxu asked, looking back at Apis who looked like she was enjoying herself. Of course, otherwise why would he want to subdue the other party? Apis replied indifferently. Then won't you go to help? Muningsu also asked curiously. I can't merge with him, how can I help? Apis shrugged, still not moving. When the cold power spread throughout the body, the power of fire also burned. After the snow girl, the flame lady also merged into Tang Mao's body. At this moment, the power of fire and ice burst out of his body almost at the same time. Fei Lan, I give you two choices. Beat me into submission, or surrender yourself. After the snow girl and the flame lady merged into his body, Tang Mao looked at Fei Lan and said, Moo. Fei Lan seemed to understand what Tang Mao said. Although Fei Lan was also shocked by Tang Mao's growth speed, it was obviously impossible to defeat it. Space gravity. When the other party responded and wanted to open its wings, Tang Mao directly applied a gravity suppression to it. Fei Lan seemed to feel the compression, but it could still withstand this gravity. Not only did it not intend to close its wings, but it also tried to continue to break free from the compression of gravity. Chapter 673, Beat to Submission. Bang. After struggling to accumulate strength, Fei Lan's wings finally opened. The walls of space were blocked and shattered directly, and the huge airwaves dispersed in an instant. The snow was rolled up all of a sudden. Like a blizzard, it spread over the top of the mountain. While the space was suppressing Fei Lan, Tang Mao's Star Palace had already connected successfully. Thunder Punishment Forbidden Thunder Hammer. The lightning on his hand kept flashing, and the power of thunder and lightning in the Star Palace continued to gather. Then a big hammer appeared in his hand. The hammer was completely gathered by the superclass thunder method. When Fei Lan wanted to take off, Tang Mao smashed it with a hammer. The moment the hammer hit, the dense thunder in the cloud also continued to gather in it. Boom boom. Fei Lan just wanted to take off, but he was locked on his wings by thunder and lightning. When the huge wings were locked and unable to move, the thunder hammer smashed towards it. Although its wings were blocked, it did not mean that it was at the mercy of others. The elemental power of the blizzard and snow continued to gather at the moment it raised its head. Moo. With Fei Lan's roar, the blizzard condensed into a huge tornado and rushed towards the thunder hammer. Boom boom boom. After the extreme power of the two elements collided with each other, the glacier that was 10,000 years old or even older could not withstand it and began to shatter. Xianhan White Tiger saw this and dodged in a hurry. The few people on his back who were concentrating on the battlefield and did not have time to stabilize their bodies were almost all knocked over by Xianhan White Tiger's big move. After they moved to a very far distance, everyone realized that the iceberg in front of them seemed to be broken in half. Exclamation mark. Originally, there were still tall mountains, but now it looked like it was no longer a distinct mountain. Who said whether we need help or not? Jiang Yu muttered, and then he said, this is simply a fight between gods. How can we intervene? Guan Yu ignored Jiang Yu's question. He also felt that he was somewhat overestimating his own abilities. This level of destruction? If he went over, wouldn't he be destroyed in a minute with a scumbag who had not yet reached the level of a superclass mage? Ice Phoenix and Fire Phoenix. While the cold air was still filling everyone's eyes, Tang Mao flew out of it. Of course, this time he had 6 wings behind him to help. Standing in the air, it was just for show. It looked good but was useless. If he wanted to be fast, he still had to rely on the help of these 6 wings. At the moment he rushed out, the power of ice and fire gathered towards his left and right hands. In such a place, the fire element was almost invisible. But this is the fusion of ice and fire, not the expansion of the domain. With his own magic power and the cooperation of Little Flame Lady, he can also raise the flame of destruction. After the ice and fire merged into one, a huge soul shadow of ice and fire phoenix emerged. The next moment, the wings of the fire phoenix spread out and rushed straight down. Boom. After the fire phoenix landed, the ice flame immediately ignited and instantly filled the huge pit. Moo. But as soon as the ice flame ignited, Fairy Lion flew out of it. Its wings were already free to move, but it resisted the explosion of the hammer. But this time the full bombing made it look extremely embarrassed. Even if it flew out of the huge pit, its wings were still in a state of embarrassment. After Fairy Lion came out, a stream of small blizzard tornadoes immediately emerged on his body, but when the flames were extinguished, his whole body began to freeze again. Under the large area of ice, it had no choice but to land again. Just as it was about to fall into the cold air, where it couldn't see anything clearly, the power of the wind emanated from its huge body from inside to outside. Pa 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 pa. As the wind hit, the ice began to break in large pieces. Whoosh. Whoosh. The wings were freed and flapped again. As it flapped, the cold air was also dispersed everywhere. After staying in the air again, Fairy Lion's eyes were filled with angry flames. Before, it disdained Tangmao's arrogance. But now, it had to pay attention to the human in front of it. This destructive power, if it wanted to hit it, since it was it, I'm afraid it would have no power to resist. Sand and dust tornado. It paid attention to Tangmao, but Tangmao didn't care at all. When it broke free from the ice, it had already begun to depict wind magic. A huge tornado rose into the sky, and in a moment it merged around Fairy Lion, eventually forming a huge sandstorm. Fairy Lion in the center naturally did not sit still and wait for death. After the wind scroll merged, it began to hit the wind wall continuously. However, its impact had no effect at all. The strong wind seemed to be constantly accumulating power. Even if it had just broken, it immediately returned to the form of a tornado. Moo. Seeing that the most primitive method did not work, Fairy Lion also rolled up a tornado, but his was formed by a blizzard. The gate of the flame prison. While it was resisting its own wind scroll, Tangmao had appeared at the mouth of the wind top without knowing when. The Fire Star Palace had been completed, and the gate of the flame prison was also aimed at Fairy Lion in the tornado. Boom, boom, boom. Waves of fire gushed out directly from the gate of the flame prison, just like a huge waterfall, just rushing down. Moo. Fairy Lion looked at the waterfall of fire waves falling, and no longer tried to break through the solid sand and wind wall. Instead, he raised his head and a blizzard spewed out of his mouth. Sizzle, sizzle, sizzle. Ice and fire collided in mid-air, and the cold air filled the whole place again. Waves of destructive magic collisions made it impossible to set foot here. At this time, Cheyenne and White Tiger had taken Muningsu and others to hide in a very far place. Although they could still feel the turbulence of the ice that had been there for who knows how many years, it was old after all, and there was no sign of breaking. Why do I feel that Tangmao, the non-human, has the upper hand? Be more confident, remove the feeling and he will have the upper hand. No wonder he made us retreat. AI Jiangtu and others became the perfect spectators at this time. To be honest, the Xianshan mark was quite shocking, but it was obviously not as shocking as the scene in front of them. A superclass wizard and a monarch level top creature, fighting alone and still having the upper hand? Question mark? What could be more shocking than this? It's about to end. Compared to the others, Apus's beautiful eyes were full of anticipation for this battle. Chapter 674 Unharmed. When Fairy Lion blocked the impact of Tangmao's fire wave, ice spikes suddenly emerged from below and rushed towards Fairy Lion. Bang bang bang. Fairy Lion reacted quickly, but this wave of bombing came just as fast. Pa. The ice spikes condensed from the extremely cold ice shattered into ice crystals when they hit Fairy Lion's huge body. Although it did not pierce its skin, the ice crystals remained on the surface of its body. Moo. The extreme cold below, the scorching heat above, and the dust tornadoes everywhere. The most important thing is that the tornadoes are also mixed with rich space power. Tangmao is almost like a multitasking. Of course, he can't do this alone. The element of ice and fire are actually completely controlled by Yanji and Zunu, while the power of wind and space is controlled by him. Although he has communicated a lot with Hidi, it is not so easy to understand talent thoroughly. Although the trip to the volcanic islands made him feel very embarrassed, the rewards he got were also great. In the past, he would not dare to think of fusing the Snow Girl and the Flame Girl at the same time without using the demon system. But now, not only has he achieved it, but he has also become more and more proficient in the tacit understanding with the Snow Girl and the Flame Girl, just like the current use of the 4 magics. His combat power has increased several times. Of course, he has the confidence to challenge the Supreme Monarch, which is entirely because of the totem source power of the totem beast Kinyuan, which does not only help him to advance. After Kinyuan's totem origin was refined by him, the flame in his body, and even the flame in the body of the little flame girl, actually perfectly merged into one. After gathering the fire, even without fusing with the flame girl, the destructive power of his fire system is already on par with the destructive power of the thunder system. If Yanji is added, even the thunder system, which has always been the strongest destruction system, will stand aside. Even though his 2 highest systems are only the 2nd level of the superclass, the combination and explosion of all magic plus the fusion assistance of the elemental pets are the confidence for him to dare to fight against the Supreme Monarch. That is to say, the environment here has some restraint on the fire system. Otherwise, with the help of the perfect fire field, the fire system is at full firepower. How can it resist now? Fairy Lion couldn't bear it, but he didn't wait for the ice and fire to penetrate, but madly crashed into the wind wall of the sandstorm. Bang, boom. At the moment, when it gave up resistance and hit the wind wall, the surrounding space felt shaking. But it didn't break through the wall after all, and the fire waves and ice spikes gathered in the middle from top and bottom. Although the 2 energies hit Fairy Lion's body, they also shook the surrounding space and distorted it. When the destructive magic spread to the surroundings, Tangmao's body radiated silver light, and then disappeared here. The huge wave of magic rushed into the sky, and the clouds were shattered. As for the extremely huge iceberg that stretched for hundreds of miles before, and the nearby icebergs were now completely razed to the ground. After Tangmao escaped from there, he hurriedly completed all his defensive magic, and the black dragon magic armor was also put on in an instant. Boom boom boom. But even so, he was directly shaken out, and crashed into a mountain that had been frozen for an unknown period of time. Tangmao was so miserable, Fairy Lion's fate was naturally worse. His huge body fell into the huge deep pit. Because of the vast white fog, it was unknown whether he was alive or dead. Fortunately, AI Jiangtu and others were on the body of Shine and White Tiger. Otherwise, based on the destructive power just now, they would not be able to escape even if they ran, right? No wonder the city doesn't allow superclass mages to fight privately. Zhao Manan swallowed his saliva and muttered while enduring the discomfort in his ears. If we had gone to help, we might have died, Jiang Yu also said to himself. Several people now had some tinnitus, but Nanju, a mage of the sound system, heard their words clearly. But now she was obviously not concerned about this. Knowing that everyone's ears were a little damaged, she transmitted the message. Don't be in a daze here. Go and see how Tangmao is doing. After hearing this, several people immediately came back to their senses from the destructive force just now. At the moment, when Nanju finished speaking, Muningsu appeared 6 wings behind her and flew towards the place where Tangmao was thrown in. However, when she arrived in front of the iceberg, Tangmao had already come out of it. He was not injured or unconscious, he just couldn't withstand the impact just now. In fact, what Tangmao didn't expect the most was that Fairy Lion was so crazy that he chose to hit the wind wall and endure the bombardment of 2 forces. He just wanted to subdue it as a younger brother, but he didn't want to kill it. After all, Fairy Lion was not cunning. He was full of hostility towards him right from the start, so he was still useful. But now, he was really not sure whether the other party was still alive. Are you okay? Muningsu hurried forward to ask after seeing Tangmao coming out. Seeing her worried look, Tangmao smiled and said, what can I do? I must have killed at least 100 or 200 monarch level creatures, if not 1,000. Wait for me here first. I'll go see if this big guy is still alive. As soon as he finished speaking, he flew towards the vast white fog. When Shine and White Tiger came over, Tangmao was no longer there. Is Tangmao okay? When AI Jiang Tu came over, he noticed the fluctuation of space magic. In addition, when he came here and found that only Muningsu was left, he understood what the fluctuation just now was. It's okay, and it seems that he is not injured. Muningsu said something that she herself didn't believe. With such a powerful magic destruction explosion, Tang Mao was actually fine. Although this is a good thing, isn't this a bit too abnormal? It may be the magic tool he has. The material of that magic tool is probably unique in the world. Nanju thought of the black armor magic tool that Tang Mao had just used and said to everyone, even if it is the best magic tool, it is impossible that nothing happened in the destruction just now. Zhao Manan's equipment is definitely the most among the people at the moment. Moreover, each magic tool is absolutely top notch. But based on the destructive power just now, Zhao Manan felt that even with his hardest tortoise shell, he could only barely save his life with all the defensive magic applied. But Tang Mao was not hurt at all. He was very confused. When did Tang Mao have such incredible equipment? Chapter 675, Reasons for Seeking Power. Tang Mao had already entered the vast white fog. Although it was foggy here, it was not difficult to find Fei Lion. Its body, as big as a mountain, was lying on the huge pit at this time, as if it wanted to fill it up. Judging from its breath, it was obviously dying. However, from its huge eyes, he did not see any sense of submission. But he had no time to teach it, so he summoned Killin directly. If Fei Lion was alive and well, Killin might not be able to control it. After all, even if Killin had received a lot of power supplements, it was still only in the state of soul. But now Fei Lion, who was dying, was not easy for Killin to control. A beam of light emanated from the jade and enveloped Fei Lion's body. When the light shone on it, it was shrinking rapidly at a speed visible to the naked eye. When it was completely shrunk, the light formed a totem vessel. Tang Mao put it in directly. Regardless of whether Fei Lion was willing or not, it could not refuse now. Moreover, if it still doesn't know what's good for it, after I beat it down, then I can only give it the opportunity to become food like gyro. In a nice cave at night, everyone sat around a fire. You didn't come here to ask for help from the totem beast. You are simply conquering by force. Jiang Shaoxu said as he sat on the left of Tang Mao. He said he came here to ask the totem to protect China, but he didn't expect that Tang Mao would fight with him as soon as he arrived. Moreover, he beat him down directly. As a girl who likes ancient creatures such as totems, she is naturally a little dissatisfied. Most of these totems without guardians are already full of wildness. Rather than letting them go to the opposite side of humans one day, it is better for me to subdue them now and arrange a suitable guardian for them. Although the method is a bit simple and crude, isn't it practical? And I didn't kill it. In this totem vessel, even if it recovers slowly, it is better than leaving it in this icy place and waiting to die. Tang Mao can understand Jiang Shaoxu's feelings. But how can there be so many reasons in this world? If he really meant it, he shouldn't have come to Xianshan, and even if he came here, he shouldn't have looked for it. What Tang Mao said is not wrong. Nanju interrupted, then looked at Tang Mao and asked, but, if you treat it like this, aren't you afraid that it will attack you when you use it again? Without the constraints of the contract and any restraint, who knows whether Fei Lion will help or bite back after he recovers? How can I not understand what you said? But don't worry, since I didn't kill it, I naturally have the confidence to tame it. Tang Mao actually didn't have much confidence, just thinking that during this period of time, Killin would give it more pressure. Anyway, Fei Lion couldn't resist now. Moreover, Tang Mao didn't believe that this stupid thing would choose to go against him, as his fist was so hard. Tang Mao, I want to know, what do you want to do by finding so many totem beasts? At this moment, AI Jiang Tu, who had been silent since the beginning, suddenly spoke. His expression was very serious, as if he had been thinking about something. Looking for a totem is naturally to enhance one's power and strength. Tang Mao responded bluntly. If one day you have enough power, what will you do? AI Jiang Tu said again. For the prosperity of the country, it is obviously not my idea. After all, it is Ningzu who has been managing Yuxu New City. Seeing him so serious, and considering what he asked, Tang Mao actually understood what AI Jiangtu was thinking. However, he did not mean to hide anything, and continued, as for power, in my eyes, it is not important. I live my life just to be free. But if you want to be free, you must have absolute strength. And what I pursue is this absolute strength. You don't want to be bound, but if everyone thinks the same as you, then wouldn't the world be in chaos? AI Jiangtu said. Hey, Captain AI, you don't have to tell me all this. I understand what you said. But if I do nothing, and have no background, with my current magic of destruction, do you think the Holy Inquisition, a brain-dead force, will let me survive? When the national government competition ended, I had already been targeted by them. Unfortunately, at that time they were afraid of the demonic power in my body, and with the incident of Lengju, they chose to put it aside. But the power of the devil may not be permanent, nor can it be used at any time. I don't like living like a rat, so I can only keep getting stronger, and I have to have a supporting force. Let those politicians who want to invite me 40 consider whether they can afford it first. As for the international laws of this world, to put it bluntly, they are shackles for those who have no background and no strength. No matter which country or place, if a powerful family wants to kill someone, these shackles are useless. Moreover, how many organizations in the world are now working for the people, and they only think about their own rights and interests? I don't want to stop them, I just want my peace. Moreover, if you want to really use the world's laws to restrain everyone, then the person in power must first express his attitude clearly. It was rare to see Tang Mao speak so many facts seriously at once, and the others were stunned for a while. AI Jiangtu actually didn't think so much. He didn't think about the international situation at all. He only thought about the domestic situation. But after hearing what Tang Mao said, AI Jiangtu suddenly felt that his vision was narrow. But don't worry, I'm not the kind of person who is unforgivable. I still abide by the domestic laws. Moreover, soldiers don't ask about political affairs. I advise you not to think too much. It's useless. Defending the territory is what you need to do. AI Jiangtu paused, and then said, maybe I think too much, but as a brother who has gone through thousands of hardships together, I still hope that you will never do anything to cause unrest in the country. You think too much. If Tang Mao wanted power, he would naturally not be the idle cloud crane he is now. Moreover, he is not that kind of material. Yuexu New City, he couldn't manage it well. How could he give orders to a country? Besides, isn't it good to be a hands-off manager? How tiring it is to worry about the country and the people all day long. As for saying that, if people have the strength to transcend the constraints, there will be such a mess in society, that is completely nonsense. If everyone has the strength of Tang Mao, then the human beings in this world will only shrink in the safe world. End of this chapter. Thank you very much for reaching the end. Don't forget to like. Looking for more exclusive content and immediate access? Subscribe to our Patreon. Remember, every like, subscription, or donation encourages us to continue. Thanks to everyone. See you in the next video.